Listen, babe. Oh, yeah. It's alright, alright, alright. Listen, babe. Oh, yeah. It's alright, alright, alright.
All right, all right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. We got another class today. It's going to be a full class.
Yes, sir.
We're going to cover a lot of stuff. So let's get started with, first of all, my name is Nana Kofinti.
Court Smith.
And we're going to bring you another session of hope. In this session, we're going to cover a lot of details. So if you're at home, get pencils and papers, whatever you need so you can make sure that you're tuned into the class. This is session 2, and I promise you we're going to bring you a hell of a banger today. Another thing, too, as we move through this class, know these first 3 classes are going to be a lot of details because January is free. And just in case somebody doesn't stay with us, we want to make sure that we leave people with tools and jewels that they can actually have impact in their life. So we're going to fill these 3 classes with a lot of information, a lot of nuggets. So it's going to move kind of fast. Now, we're going to move fast these first 3 classes. As we go through the whole year, we're going to take time and dive deep into a lot of these concepts that we're going to introduce you to, as well as other concepts that we won't have time to introduce you to. With that being said, let's get into some class business. First couple of things is that make sure if you are watching this video and you want to be a part of the class throughout the year, make sure you sign up. Go to the hopefoundation.org. It's all over social media. It's probably on a YouTube link. It's on. If you go to 5tmedia.com, you can also find our Hope link. But make sure you sign up. That way, you not only do you become part of the class, but you also make sure that you're also receiving your notifications, and you become you join this ecosystem of Black entrepreneurs who are working on solving a problem. Now, for those of you who are listening to this who are not Black, you can also join. You won't feel racial tension. This is not a militant experience. You are actually joining a community of people who are actually going to be building and growing. So actually, you can almost say you're joining a future strong economic structure more than you're joining just a racial group. Would you say so? Second thing is that I forgot to mention last week, class runs from 6:45 to 9:15. So sometimes we'll go over, but class pretty much runs from 6:45 to 9:15. And last, make sure that you, right now, so you can make sure that you're staying updated, like our YouTube page, subscribe to our YouTube page, and like our Facebook page. This way you get immediate notifications when we go live, so you won't miss the live experience. The live experience in itself is just an amazing experience. So that's number 1.
Let me throw one thing in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
And make sure when you do show up to class, you bring something and take notes. So whether that's a journal, a pen and a pad, or your phone that you can take notes in the journal so that over time and over the weeks and months and the whole course of the year, you've jotted down and wrote down all the thoughts and the nuggets because it's going to be so much. So if you're like, yeah, that's great, you're going to lose. It's scientifically proven that when you write something down, it embeds itself more in your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, like 7 times more than trying to remember it.
Excellent. We'll let this train pass real quick, so keep it going. Next, if you have any questions from last week class, or if you have any questions that may come up within the next couple of subjects, or any questions that pop in your head, make sure you post those questions in the group. And if you're in Facebook or YouTube, in the chat section, post your questions. If you post those questions, what will happen is that when it's time for the question session, Shabisha is going to come to the microphone and is going to ask some of the relevant questions, and we'll take time to answer some of your questions. It's important that we ask questions. Like by you asking questions, the class is not programmed. We're sharing a lot of information, but it can somewhat seem programmed if you just let us talk and talk and talk and talk. So we want to make sure that you guys are engaging us and we're engaging you. If you have some new business questions, you can also post those within the group. And once again, we're going to take time out in this class session to actually answer questions. Next, I want to actually celebrate something. Last class, we had over 1,700 viewers. Over 1,700 viewers viewed our last class. And we're growing. Um, I'm really excited about that, right? This is this. Those of you who I asked to share, you guys went out and you shared the class, and the impact. The goal about this. The goal of this class is not popularity. It's not status signaling, but it's about impact. And we've taken a lot of time to make sure that we are delivering valuable information to you, not ego-driven information or not popular information that kind of falls in a bubble, but we're delivering valuable information to you. And so we want to be able to, we just want to say thank you for all of you that showed up. And this is just really exciting. 1,700 people. We can't even fit 1,700 people in this building. So well, hopefully in the future building it will. But right now we can't fit 1,700 people in this building. So I just want to say to all of you online that showed up, thank you for taking time out of your schedules, out of your life, to share this journey with other entrepreneurs.
Yes, sir.
All right, so with that being said, before we get started with the class, we have a couple of returning students that we want to come up to the microphone and share some personal experiences. This time we're going to have them sit where we sit, and Shabisha and Kevin Allen are going to come up to the forefront and share some of their experiences with the whole class. So let me just step out the way so they can come on up. Why don't you guys come on up?
Yeah. All the way. Coming all the way live. All the way live.
Like the high chair.
I'm focused. Yeah, man. Started off, Shabisha.
Let's see. This is my third year. My third year here in the class.
Use your mic, girl.
My mic is, I'm not using my mic. Okay, let me get myself together. Okay, so this is my third year in the class. I came in here really quiet and really shy, and now you can't really shut me up. I came in here with like a 15, 16-year corporate career, 2 degrees. I'm one of the MBAs in here. I came in here thinking I knew a lot. One of the greatest gifts that this class has given me is curiosity and to not assume that I know anything. You know, I walked in here an expert and really taking a lot of pride in that. And now I consider myself a learner. I've learned so much more about myself, about people, about how to relate to people, and I think the biggest thing in my journey is going from being a manager, because I was a very high-level manager, to actually being able to connect with people as human beings. And that has been life-changing for me. So that's not only changed the way that I work, it's changed the way that I live my life. And so I see myself as like a whole person and not just a title. And that's a big shift for me. And I think the biggest gift in this class is to be surrounded with other people who look like me. I've never had that in all of my years of working and all of my years of going to school. I have never been in a community of progressive Black people. And I don't know if there are words to describe what it feels like to be able to think about how we see possibility and how we see solutions to the problems that we face, and just like leaning in and being ambitious about that. So I think my journey from seeing what couldn't be to seeing possibilities and seeing multiple possibilities all of the time is really, to be very honest with you, has really changed my life. And it's taken me out of this very small, narrow box and to a place where everything and anything is possible. So that's been my journey so far in class.
I feel the same way. I like to add those things I tell Nana. I didn't know any entrepreneurs until I met him, and then I didn't know any Black entrepreneurs until I met him. So I think I was about 30 years old, and that's a long time to go without knowing someone who owns anything. So just walking around my neighborhood, walking around downtown Oakland, any place, I never looked at a building and was like, I wonder if a Black man owned that. I just kind of knew he didn't already. So now I think my mind just opened up a little bit to say, you can grow. You can be better than your environment. You can be bigger than your environment, and not in a I'm better or I'm hovering above anyone, but I don't have to be a victim to the circumstances. And not just financially, just the way you think, the way you raise your kids. I mean, the way you talk to people, the way you listen. Empathy's been really big, understanding where other people sit, meeting them where they are without subsidizing failure. No? You like that? I guess personally, just as a father, it just helped me. It just helped me be in tune and not be emotionally reacting to things that don't deserve it. Giving people space to kind of be themselves, and it just helped on a personal level. And then moving into business, it helped me in my music career, my art career, to be able to relate to people, fans, and also to sell to the public in a way that I'm showing up to them and I'm of service to them and not trying to hustle nobody. And that's been a big thing to turn my business around and actually create profit. So yeah, this class is just dope. And everybody's black for the most part, and that's big because I've never been around this kind of community either. So yeah, it's definitely a life-changing experience, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Y'all there, appreciate y'all, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you, man.
My dog.
Yeah, so thank you, family. Appreciate you guys. I want to take a time out. We're going to take time out for the next few weeks and make sure that every class we have individual testimonies so you can see, so people can share the impact this class is having for them, not for us to say, no, believe us, this class is impactful. And you guys go, so who has it impacted? We want to just continue to highlight different individuals. And as we, one of the things I think we're going to start working on that we discussed in the team is start placing some of the stories on our website. So you can see other individuals who have had a great experience. You can realize that it's just not this from the top down testimony of it's impacting people, but the question is, who is it impacting? Well, we have the who was in the building. So we want to just go ahead and take some time for that. So now with that being said, next thing I want to do is, as an order of business, is that, listen, we have a donation link on the site. Let me share this with you guys, and maybe I brought this home last week, but I want to make sure you guys really understand. So Court runs Court Smith Basketball, and I collaborate with Mashama to run 510 Media. And that eats up 90% of our time. And we realize that subsidized education in the areas of leadership, business, in the areas of, I don't like the word business, because I'm going to tell you why I don't like the word business later, but in the areas of business and economics, in the areas of parenting, in the areas of community health, this form of education is a must-have. Our schools, because of systemic racism, they highly underserve us. And then by the time we get to college, we're so underserved that even though we're getting the same grades, sitting in the same classes, we're not getting the same lessons. And so there's a need to have educational subsidies in our community. And we want to grow Hope to a point that this program, we have multiple programs that serve in the community, 1. 2, that's measurable successes. 3, that we are able to pay the staff who are servicing these solutions, and eventually put Hope in its own separate building. Currently, Hope presides in one of 510 Media spaces, but we want to be able to place it in its own space so we can also service. Let this train go by 1 second. So that train keeps going by. We want to get past that. But we want to be able to place Hope in an environment where entrepreneurs can actually and build a relationship with Hope around the clock, as opposed to just servicing entrepreneurs for these small windows. We envision Hope. Right now, Hope, in our Hope program, and under the 510 Media Foundation, we're also teaching a branding class, a photography class. We are working on, currently what's in beta is a parenting class and a women's class, where women are working with women to rebirth femininity. Don't ask me about that. I'm a man. I let them introduce that. I'm not gonna get in trouble. I don't want the Me Too coming after me, so we're not about to do all that. So, but it's happening because there's a need for a discussion for Black women I'll get into some thoughts around that in a minute, especially after this crack era. So, yeah, so if you can, like, if you watch the video for one time or two times or three times, you're trying to figure out how can you support organizations that are servicing the Black community and having impact, hit that donation button. And like I said, you're not pouring into my personal wealth. My wealth is well established from 5T Media. You're pouring into growing a program that's going to actually impact the community, a very fiscal responsible program as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. Anything you want to say on that real quick? Okay. Next, share this class. The reason this class is public, so you guys can share as much as possible. Share until you can't share anymore. Share until you're tired of sharing. Let's get this program going. Let's get a new form of conversation. Now, for those of you who are new, I'm sure you're still trying to establish trust, and that's fair. But if you stick with us 3 or 4 months, you're going to realize this class, there's nothing like this. Well, there's not nothing like it. There's probably something out there like this, but we're rare and far in between to the point that I don't know another program like this. And so, and I promise you, if you stick with this program within 6 months, you're going to develop a new way of talking, a new way of thinking, a new way of moving, and it's nice to have a tribe of people that you can relate to and can relate to you, as opposed to you're learning in isolation, and then you find yourself almost becoming a cynic because you're so frustrated with everybody around you, you start to lose faith in people around you. Where this is finally a circle of people who are unifying on common ideas, which allows us then to also become a balance to each other. So this is it's a dope environment. So share the live postings, share the podcast with friends and family. Let's grow this together. Real quick, when the class goes past, sometimes it will go past 9:15. Those of you on the East Coast, because we have a lot of students on the East Coast, those of you on the East Coast, just come back to it tomorrow. Don't stay up all night long and lose your sleep. Because if you're tired, you're not digesting the lesson. If you're not digesting the lesson, then it's not serving its purpose, right? And so at the end of the day, just stop it and come back. Or if something happens in your life and gets really, really busy, these videos will not be deleted. You can just come back where you left off at, right? The only thing you may lose when you come back and watch it later, you don't get the live experience. I'm sure right now people are posting ideas or chatting ideas as we engage, and I can honestly say I go back and read all the chats. Those chats are fun. Like it's like you're learning and having fun at the same time. But for those of you who get busy, when you get busy, just stop at 9:15 and come back, because sometimes we go longer because we're rolling, we're hitting an issue, and there's a lot that we're looking at that's making it where we want to complete the discussion as opposed to just end this discussion or chop it off sharply. But for the most part, our team is taking special time to provide us with a big old damn clock that we're looking at that's going to remind us what time it is. So the chance of us going over time is going to have to be a personal choice, not an accident no more, because we're looking at a big ass clock. So anyway, I'm gonna keep going. That clock hella big. I wish I was here.
7:04 right now. 7:04. 7:04.
So real quick, before we're gonna get into this podcast in a second. Hopefully everybody had a chance to listen to this podcast. Now, when you take this class, there's multiple angles that we're coming at you from. If you just listen to us, there's a chance that you can fall into the authority fallacy, which you start accepting what we say. And our goal is to make you a free thinker, not a follower of us. Now, don't get me wrong. When you're an entrepreneur, our goal is to create followers, because you can't achieve wealth without followers. However, in this class, we're trying to create peers. And so in order for you to make you our peers, we don't want to show up as gurus. And how do we prevent that? We want to give you source. Where are we getting it from? We have a young lady sitting here today. Her name is Fern. If I quote a book, Fern reads that book. If I say I got it from here, Fern goes out and seeks the same information. So Fern becomes my peer because she's gathering information just the way I gathered information. It doesn't help us to have a single source of information. And so these podcasts we're posting are individuals and sources of information that can help you own the conversation for yourself. if you take this class and you show up at the bar and you're talking to your friend, we want you to sound like you, not us. And the only way you're going to do that is you listen to the podcast yourself. But don't worry, we're going to help you with that as well. We're going to go layers and layers and layers and layers deeper throughout this class. So before we talk about the podcast, we want to go over this statement from Timothy Galway. Now, Timothy Galway was he trained professional tennis athletes. And he says in his writings, recognize that physical abilities was not the full picture in any sport. In tennis, success is very psychological because there are really two games going on, the inner game and the outer game. This is so important. Stick with us. If a player doesn't pay attention to how they play the inner game, against their insecurities, their wandering minds, their self-doubt, and their certainty. I think we can almost stop there for a second. I think what we're missing is that, and this is kind of the typical rhythm of our first class, is you sat in front of a screen and you're looking at the screen and you're saying, who are these guys? What are they going to tell me? They don't understand my life. Who are you to tell me I'm doing something right or wrong or I should be doing something different? And you're going to say to yourself, I'm good. Ain't nothing wrong with me. And you might be reflecting on the good times when the car was rolling downhill and it required zero effort. Yet you forgot how you responded when it was time to push the car up the hill. And you forgot about that emotional space you were in. You forgot about how your mind would wander and you couldn't focus. You forgot about how you didn't feel like you were good enough, and you developed a language where you beat yourself up with that inner voice. You forgot that at that point when everything you thought you knew wasn't working and you was in a space of uncertainty, how you almost fell apart. And you just showed up with anger or emotions or the typical, it's almost like that famous Mike Tyson thing, which he says, everybody has a plan until you get hit in the mouth. Some of y'all went straight to windmill when you went to uncertainty because you didn't know what to do. And yet, I think what you have to get in touch with in order for you to go through this class successfully is that space. You can easily focus on your highlights, your wins. Remember those games you lost. Remember those games where you couldn't score a point. Remember those games, it's almost like there's a distortion. Even some of the people online right now, some of you guys have salary jobs. And because you have salary jobs, you are so put to sleep by your job, by the comfort of your job, that you think everything you believe in is working because it's not being tested against the wild. You're buffered by your job. Yet, if you were able to imagine yourself being terminated tomorrow or your industry changed tomorrow, let's be honest, then that's the person you really are. Because that's the person who's constantly talking to you in the back of your mind when you're making decisions because you have this fear. For example, if you know that you're highly valuable in the market, you move different in the market. You move like an entrepreneur. But when you know if somebody fires you or if this contract ends tomorrow, you don't have shit and you're not sure where the next one going to come from, that's the person this class is talking to. We got to talk to you. We got to talk to that person that it's like the inner game, and that's going back to the podcast as well. Remember in the podcast he said I think the word he used was the broker that's helping you with your life. The most impactful broker in your life is your inner voice. And some of us raised in very harsh households. Sit your goddamn ass down. These little niggas acting a fool. What I tell your ass? Get to work. Spanking, whoopings, hitting. And that's the voice you use to talk to yourself. And I think why it's important to know this is because there's this word called, Homo economicus. Homo economicus is the foundation of economics. And Homo economicus is this idea that human beings will always make rational decisions. When they're faced with a challenge in front of them, they will make rational decisions. I'm keeping it simple. I can get really complex with it, but they make rational decisions. Yet what we found out is human beings are not rational. When you are scared, you do not do rational stuff. Your brain doesn't give a shit about success. Your brain cares about one thing, survival, which means that quite often when you're in this game of chasing success, you're kind of irrational. And so the problem with this whole idea of, oh, I can just follow these tactics, is that there's this emotional hurdle inside of you. These feelings, these fallacies, distorted reality, this distorted reasoning, this distorted consciousness that's actually causing you to have, well, what I say, mistaken output or failed output. And what we think is a lot of us get into like, well, teach me what to do now. Show me the tactics. Show me the next move. Show me A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The problem is even if I show you the moves, it doesn't mean you're going to implement them. Case in point, let's go back to sports. If I showed you every move in a basketball game, doesn't mean that when it's time to play the game, you can execute them with perfection. But it's so easy to believe that when you're in practice by yourself and there's nobody competing with you, or the people competing with you are worse off than you, that you're better than you really are. And that's kind of my point with this point. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, as we migrate into the podcast, I think is gonna flow perfectly because the inner game is everything. Inner game is everything. I remember when I had a player on my team, our promotional team, and he will play terribly with the crowd, play terribly when in a big crowd, but in practice he was great. And so that's one of the telltale signs that there's a conflict between what you want to be inside and what you want to be on the outside. And so there's nothing you can do on the outside if you don't first work inside here. And so as we migrate into the podcast, we get deeper into it. But inner game is everything.
And I think another thing too is that a lot of times you think that you're facing the outside world. It's your perception of the outside world you're facing. It's meaning that your greatest enemy is really you. Like, okay, let me even amplify it. Let's get to that black layer. Let's talk black folks layer. Black folks, we're ingrained with so many limiting beliefs around racism that we even quit before we start because we believe we can't. And the can't is echoed not only by, say, people in our own community, but by television, movies, news, media sources, social media. And so in our minds, we have this voice that's saying, black people, black people, they don't like us, this is not, this language that we're echoing, we can't even take advantage of some of the new opportunities that's afforded to us because that voice in our head stops us from engaging that process. So in this class, we're going to spend the whole year changing that voice. If we can't change that voice, then you can read all these books and you're going to have the same economic situation you had as day one of this class. Yeah. And so one of our first goals is change the way you talk to yourself. Change the way you view yourself. Let me show you another way that you can cause damage. Let's say you get mad at me, or you at home when I say something that pisses you off, which I plan on pissing you off at some point. If I haven't pissed you off, I haven't did my job. But let's say I pissed you off at some point. When I piss you off and you get mad at me, I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat a sandwich. Guess who's going to suffer from getting angry? You are. Half the people you get angry at, it only causes damage to you. You think by getting mad at me, you about to spend my resources. You spend up most of your resources. So every time you get angry with somebody, every time you give somebody the power to make you angry, you take a loss. Now, you got to understand compound damage. You let all that information keep coming in and weighing on your shoulders, before you know it, you almost are a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because you made your life a fucked up life. You almost become a natural pessimist or cynic. Why? Because you start off with an innocent, I'm cutting this person off, I'm angry at this person, I'm mad at this person. Like, for example, let me keep it clear. We won't keep it just for 100 for a second. When they broke into the White House, why were you mad? I understand you don't accept it. I understand you don't like it, but why are you mad? Think about the impact it's having upon you. Or let me give you another example. I was watching LeBron James. I told Court the other day, LeBron James is well accomplished. He's the best in the world right now when it comes to basketball. He's won championships, and he's well paid. He's probably not going to have to work hard for the rest of his life. He's probably going to have more freedom than the majority of us that listen to this podcast. Majority of us. Yet, he's still complaining to the referee when a call goes wrong. Why in the hell are you wasting your time? You're LeBron James. But I would argue that many of us are doing that every day. We're throwing our thoughts, our energy away on things that just doesn't even fucking matter. You want to hit a couple things on go back to the podcast a second?
Oh, yes.
Okay, go ahead. So I think Court wants to highlight a couple points of the podcast because his phone was turned over so fast, it was ridiculous. So I'm going to let Court kind of jump into this podcast real quick.
I hope you guys listen to it. Because if you didn't, go back and listen to it. Because this probably is one of the foundations about, what we're going to do during the course of this class. And if you're here for a short time, it can be a game changer for you. And it piggybacks on the inner game stuff that we talked about. The inner game is everything. Because one of the major quotes that came from that podcast is that the rhythm and routine that the words that they said to you as a child, and what your religion told you as a child, and what both your mom and dad said to you when they were angry or trying to get you motivated or inspired to do work that's your inner voice now. So we have, for most of us, some of us may have had parents who were very skilled at giving us, great intellectual and psychological tools, but most of us, that get your ass in here, I'll beat your ass, I'm gonna whoop you. Would you say to me, who you think you are? All that shit is your inner voice now. So when you're trying to do something, or you're going after something, or you're going beyond your comfort zone, and those little voices in your head is like, man, who do you think you are? That didn't come from you. You were programmed with that. So the idea and the goal is to spend your energy reconditioning that voice, so that when you get into situations where you're uncomfortable or it's challenging for you, you have voices in your head that help you, that push you through, or that can work through where you are and work through your challenge. If we can't listen, as an intro entrepreneur, when I started out on this journey in 2003, when I quit my job, it had nothing to do with the outside world. The self-sabotage was real. And the self-sabotage came from the inner, came from inside. So that's one of the beautiful parts of that podcast that I feel like is a gem. The other one is understanding the difference and the value of playing the game with integrity and morals. Because inside this game, you'll realize in the entrepreneurial world, it's the wild. Motherfuckers will play they will play with every tool they have, and some of them don't be ethical at all or moral. But guess what? If it's not against the law, shit, they can play it. So that doesn't mean we play it. It means just know that it's out there like that. So, but a lot of times when people gain those kind of financial wins or successes, or they hit their financial goals and get the awards and the accolades and all of that shit, that's great. But the emptiness, if a person still feels empty and not happy, that means there's some ethics and morals in there that, man, maybe you need to address those too. Because playing the game for the sake of being a stand-up human and adding value to the game, whether you win the big pot or not, or win the gold or not, is very important. And that's how Blood won that gold. That's how he won. That's how he broke the record, because he said, you know what, win, lose, or draw, I'm going to run this race in a way that contributes to the game to say thank you. And so if we translate to entrepreneurial talk or entrepreneurial thinking, a lot of times after you get punched in the face, like Nana said, that shows our true character. It shows how much integrity and morals we have. If you have employees and you're in COVID during 2020, you have employees and you got punched in the face, like that, your interaction and treatment with them, that's part of it. Because sometimes it's hard to walk in that office on the 1st or the 15th when it's paycheck time and you got to write all those checks and shit is bad. So how do you interact with them? Good morning. Good morning. Yeah. It's real. And I think, extracting some of the tools from here, it can be powerful.
All right. So I want to share a couple of reflections, personal reflections. We won't give ourselves just to share anything personal. I want to talk about something we talked about last week, but I want to get a little deeper into it. Because I think I don't want you guys to think that this is our personality. I want you to understand it's the nature of what we do. A lot of times when you have a job, you learn to be careful about what you say, how you show up, and what you do. But that's also a statement of you being controlled. It is what it is. I can't make it sound sexy, but it is. When you come out into the wild, those controls don't exist. They don't even mean anything. You can come out to the wild and tell somebody you have a PhD degree, and they're going to ask you, well, can you do the goddamn job or not? Like, your degree doesn't, it could be a branding tool or a branding value, but it's not a conclusion. But when you're in the wild, sometimes people who are in the wild, you will hear us curse a little bit more. Why? Because we're signaling to you, we're in the wild. We'll make mistakes. It shows our skin in the game. It shows that we're authentic. Because we don't have a boss to show up to and answer to. We don't have somebody who's going to ding us if our tie ain't straight. We're not going to have somebody who's going to fire us if our shirt ain't white enough, right? And we know that. And because we're in this game of freedom, that's what that's what being an entrepreneur is all about at the highest level, is freedom. A lot of times we unconsciously signal to other entrepreneurs, we're free. And that's how we're amongst each other. We're not cursing because we're just morally rebellion. We're sometimes, like when we wear these kind of clothes or we buck the system, it's because we're not part of the system. We are creating our own systems. See, the system you're bucking was created by a man before us, and now you're bucking that. Well, when we become entrepreneurs, we learn to think outside the system. And so I think the reason I'm saying this is because when Donald Trump was running for president, we knew he was going to win because he came off more authentic. Sometimes when you're trying to be so professional, I think we got the game fucked up. We think being professional is becoming an entrepreneur. Becoming an entrepreneur is mastering a craft and understanding the complexity of the web of human relationships, product relationships, game theory, mathematics. It's a whole bunch of this complexities. That's what. But entrepreneurs at the end of the day are usually, a healthy entrepreneur is usually kind of a realist because they have to be that to survive. And sometimes when you're in corporate, you're more or less following the instructions to survive. I mean, like you can go to a corporate job right now and say, you know what, I think this is what should be done. And you're probably going to get fired. Because that system already has a way that it needs to be done for them to be successful. So they need you to come in and follow the instructions. So with those controls, if you try to take me in court and put us in that environment, our chances of success is close to zero.
Unemployable.
Because we're absolutely unemployable. We're free. We're wild animals in the wild. And so what you're seeing is a statement of mental and psychological freedom by the way we show up, not moral deterioration or insulting religious beliefs. Because a lot of these ideas that most people look, majority of the people in society have jobs. So this is a job-based society. So we should come off very eccentric to you. If you go to an entrepreneur class and they feel good to you, it's probably because you're not learning very much. Let me give you some game. I'm about to give you our pimp game time. We need a banner called Pimp Game Moment. All right, here's some pimp game. If you meet anybody, this is game. Stay with me, y'all. If you meet anybody, anywhere, that's an orator, and you're like, I really love the way they speak, it's probably because you see yourself in them. So here's some pimp game. Next time you meet somebody and you feel super, super warm, mentally go cold to your own warmth. Meaning that, say to yourself, I really like them. Fuck it, why do I like them? Let me sit back and analyze this. And then become a devil advocate and actually become a lawyer arguing the opposite case of why you don't like them. Now, if that lawyer loses, proceed. But if that lawyer start having this best winning day of all time, you got him looking like Johnny Cochran in his most easiest battle ever, at that point, that's your first warning. If you feel so warm that you're ready to argue about somebody else, go cold. I promise you, that's so much game. It's ridiculous because half the time, that will save you in your own relationships. If you see somebody on the street, you're like, oh my God, he's so cute. I really enjoyed him. I want to date him. Go cold. Analyze it. If you don't go cold, you will develop so many biases and you will pimp yourself. Somebody else didn't pimp you. You pimped yourself. I'm trying to protect you not from the outside pimp, not the dude that's starting Goldie 2, 3, or 4. I'm trying to stop you from your own internal pimp.
Look here, baby. No, you know why that's so much game? It's so much game because right now we are in a world of information overload. Everybody has a platform. Everyone. So you have all of these people now giving advice on shit. And as we migrate more into the upcoming years, people are going to get better at speaking, at manipulating, at figuring out how to psychologically move someone. A lot of people ask me, well, how do I know which one is right? The Bible tells that. There's a book, and I don't know the scripture, but it says, by their fruits you will recognize them. By their fruits. So the litmus test when you're arguing with yourself is, okay, so what have they done? What have they done? Like Chris was talking about last week, that the report card is a bank account. Because now you hop on Clubhouse right now, and it is Clubhouse full of millionaires showing you how to make money, relationship advice on how to be happy with your. It's all kind of advice popping off. But first, before you listen and hear and how well and eloquent they speak, let's look at the resume. What have they done? What have they done?
Go cold.
Yeah.
Go cold. Any other reflections you want to hit before we move forward?
No.
Okay, we got a lot to go. Now, let's get started. This is when the class starts. Is there any questions popped up yet online that we need to address yet, Shabisha? Okay, good. We'll keep rolling then. So, time to change. This is the beginning of Hope class. So last week was the intro. The beginning of this class was the intro. Now it's time to start teaching this class. First and foremost, we're going to start from the base of the base of the base. So the first 5 years of Hope, or the first 4 years of Hope, was a pilot program. We didn't announce it to the public because we had to learn how to teach. So it took us 4 years to learn how to communicate this thing called entrepreneurship and leadership. I kind of want to say they combined. And then the 5th year, we went live, and this is the 6th year. And one of the things that we learned in 6 years of teaching entrepreneur or business courses is that a lot of people come to our class and go, man, I couldn't read all the homework last night, or I couldn't focus, or these thoughts are just too deep for me, Nana, or, Nana, at the end of the day, I read some of the book, then I fell asleep and I had so much to do, or my schedule's so busy, or, I know you said start exercising, but it's just hard for me to stick with it. And for a long time, somehow I think it just kind of went unnoticed that we actually have a way of dealing with that that's actually in alignment with neuroscience. And so what we're not going to do in this class is throw so many big neuroscience terms at you, because then at the end of the day, I think we're going to lose you. Matter of fact, that podcast, one of the things that was amazing about that last podcast is that podcast actually highlighted a lot of neuroscience truths, but he just didn't use the terminology. And so we're going to try to do the same thing. I'm going to have to use a little bit of neuroscience language. I'm talking about very, very, very little. But my goal is that when you leave this class today, you're going to understand what is the foundation of how to change yourself. All right? So I think first we have to discuss a couple of functions of the brain. And we're going to discuss multiple functions. But one of the most dominant functions of the brain is to keep the body alive. If the body runs low on energy, your ability to understand the outside world is distorted. Let me say this again. If the body runs low on energy, listen to me. And he said in this podcast, that this game is all about energy. You are a ball of energy walking around. But energy is like, it just doesn't come from like the heavens and gods. If you don't believe me, stop eating. And then try to talk to me in 20 days if you're here. So you need energy. Have you guys ever been hungry and find yourself what they call hangry, which is I'm hungry and angry at the same time? Let's go back and reflect on that moment. When you're hungry and angry, before somebody tells you you're hungry and angry, you don't realize you're hungry and angry. It's not until somebody actually gives you some food and you eat, you go, oh shit, I was tripping. So your brain, at the end of the day, when it feels it doesn't have enough resources, it will distort reality to protect itself. It will shut down certain perceptions to protect itself. It will start to disconnect functions just to protect itself. I'm going to get deeper throughout the year, but we're going to start off really simple. And this is very, very important because as we get into this, I'm about to explain to you a lot of shit you've seen your whole life that you couldn't explain, that you tied to morality, you tied to ignorance, when it really came down to energy management. So, second thing you need to understand, every time you see something or hear something, your brain and your body responds. If I walk by you right now and say, yo, what's up? And I snore, your brain says, hey, body, get ready in case some shit go down. When the sun comes out, your body says, hey, body, get ready for this. Everything you do, listen to me right now, your brain is telling you, giving your body these instructions. Make sure you breathe. Make sure you focus. Make sure you sit there. But anything that is not relevant to the brain at the time, your body, it goes unnoticed by the brain. For example, feel how the bottom of your feet feel right now. Now, before I said that, you didn't pay attention to the way your bottom of your feet felt. But your brain does not pay attention to anything that's irrelevant to its survival. So, for example, if you have been standing for a long period of time, your feet are going to send a message to your brain, oh my God, we're kind of standing too long. Tell this brothers or sister to sit down. But if it's not within our main focus, we don't see it. Meaning that the brain only sees what it needs to see to stay alive. That's it. Now I'm gonna get way deeper throughout the year, and I'm gonna prove to you that reality ain't real. But for right now, I know that's gonna get really deep. For some of y'all are starting to think about smoking weed. Do not smoke the weed right now. Put the joint down. This is not that kind of moment. Stay focused and stay connected. So the body and the brain is not disconnected. The body and brain is one. We talk about the body and brain as being separate. They're not. The body and the brain are always talking and communicating to each other for your survival. And at the end of the day, the brain's number one purpose is to protect that body. The brain doesn't care about success. The brain doesn't care about you eating gumbo this weekend. The brain doesn't care about you going to an Atlanta party. Your brain cares about one thing, keeping you alive. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about what is the basic lifestyle of an entrepreneur. By the way, that's Clark. Clark's in the class. Dope-ass bass player. He's down in L.A., originally from Oakland. If y'all want to hear some funky-ass bass, that's Clark right there. Anyway, that's him about 5 or 6 years ago. He's real fly right now. He's down there like he's born by one of Prince's junior sons. But anyway, but keep it moving. But we have to discuss what is an entrepreneur lifestyle. Entrepreneurs don't have more will than anybody else in the community. We're not super people. We're not smarter than anybody else. We're definitely not stronger than anybody else. We're not better than anybody else. We're not blessed more than anybody else. We're not luckier than anybody else. It's a skill set. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's some basic things that you have to maintain. Now, I'm going to go over these things, and it seems very counterintuitive what I'm about to say. 1, you have to sleep. 2, you have to eat. 3, you have to drink. 4, you have to exercise. 5, you have to engage in touch or even sex. Those both are important. I'm going back to why. Next, you have to practice learning. Next, you have to practice meditation. Next, you have to practice discovery, being curious, and then repeat. Now, this is the basic. It's going to expand throughout the year, but this is the basic. Now, why is this necessary? Remember I said the brain is about energy. The question is, how do you replenish that energy? If you low on energy, let me tell you some of the symptoms of being low on energy. When you low on energy, you can't process complex thoughts. You say, what do you mean? Come to my house after being real hungry, and I say, hey, let me break down to you some of Aristotle's and Plato's greatest philosophy. You say, no, I can't. I'm hungry. I ain't got time for this shit. If I said to you, hey, listen, after you haven't slept for 13, 14, 15 hours, and you haven't eaten, I say, hey, help me wash my car. And I come to your side of the car, and I go, hey, you missed all these spots? You're like, dude, I'm hungry, and I'm sleepy. I can't focus. I can't concentrate. Let me give y'all some coder game. It is proven that food is directly tied to poverty. It's proven that kids who are undernutrition cannot focus, they cannot study, they cannot process, they can't handle complex ideas because they're undernutrition or they're underslept or they're not drinking enough water. These are some basic, I know this sounds crazy, it sounds simple as hell, but I promise you, if those of you who have said, I've struggled reading these books, look at your sleeping patterns. Are you sleeping 8 hours a night? How are you eating? Are you eating 3 to 4 times a day? Are you eating healthy food or are you eating junk? The brain needs a lot of protein. Are you feeding with a lot of carbs that have no value to the brain and wonder why the brain is underserved? Let's say you're that kind of person that emotionally snaps on people all the time. Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you drinking? Are you exercising? Exercising helps you balance the budget. Touch also helps you balance the budget. Sex helps you balance the budget. If you're not engaging in these basic activities, and I promise you, look at in corporate America, how everybody's, oh, who needs sleep? I don't need to sleep, right? Or they go all day long with 8 hours, no food. And you wonder why you're not changing, you're not growing. Go ahead, Trey. The 2 most expensive acts of your energy, the 2 most expensive ones, is uncertainty and change. Your brain hates uncertainty and your brain hates change. Well, what does that mean? That means that if you are low on food, that means whoever you are, you stay that way until you die. If you're low on sleep, whoever you are, you're going to stay that way until you die. If you're low on exercise, and whoever you are, you're going to stay the way you are until you die. It hates uncertainty. When you become an entrepreneur, everything is new. That means you are walking in a land of uncertainty. Do you realize that chance of you being a successful entrepreneur and starving yourself, not getting sleep, not drinking, not exercising, and not touching, the chances of you achieving that is close to 0? I'm going to even go further with that in a minute. Oh, let's go. Fuck it. I'm going to keep it going. In the hood, we have a tendency to get mad about a lot of stuff. We gossip a lot about a lot of just noisy shit that don't mean nothing. Every time you get angry about something that doesn't mean nothing, you spend that energy that you're losing. When the police cars drive by your house, when you hear gunshots, it's burning energy because your body goes, oh shit, we might have to go to war, and it sends the energy to the body. Now, you may not use it because you might realize, oh, they're just shooting us fireworks, right? But all those fireworks going off during for the last 4 or 5 months in the hood, that's burning energy. Loud car coming down the street with bass, boom, boom, boom. That's energy you're burning because your body's preparing for battle. Your body, if you say, "What's up, my nigga?" even though that's your loved one, your body spent energy for that. Now, let me help you guys so you guys don't get too black and white with this.
Maybe you can define how you feel about that N word too.
Oh, I'm gonna say that for a little later. I'll get into the N word a little bit later because that's gonna get real heavy. They might actually start thinking about snorting cocaine when I get through with that one. Anyway, point is this. So let's keep it going. But my point is this: is that you burn so much energy. If you watch a movie that's super violent or super adventurous, you're burning energy. If you listen to a song that's super violent, you're burning energy. Okay, so y'all can almost see how the hood is designed to burn a lot of fucking energy, but with poor nutrition and poor sleep. This is called why hoods stay hoods. Because everybody in the hood is capable of changing. But if I put that animal in a situation where it's not getting proper nutrition, proper sleep, proper engagement and touch, proper drinking of water, not exercising, now you see why the hood doesn't change. You can almost see the characteristics of people being underserved by the absolute basics. So when I say to y'all, hey, when these big companies come to us and say, let's give black businesses millions of dollars, and people are not sleeping, they're not eating, they're not drinking, their chances of changing and actually embracing those changes that come along with that $1 million is close to zero. I mean, I don't think you have...
Yeah. In some neighborhoods, the only meals that the kids get are the free ones at school.
That's real.
So then how do you expect them to really be able to focus 100% and pay attention?
Not possible.
And then we compare them on tests with other cultures. It's not like there's other invisible variables that we don't see.
Let me add another layer to it. I'm gonna make y'all even more uncomfortable. The famous phrase, "I wish a motherfucker would." Y'all heard that in our hood. That's a phrase that's the foundation of our thoughts. We don't even use the words, but we think it when something's about to go down. Here's a problem. Every time, let me come back to that one. Let me pause that one because I want to touch multiple things. Let me go back to this point. If all the things that so I don't want to send this one message to you guys and turn us into this more fragilista, right? Because I think that we become too fragile based upon social justice, and I'm gonna get into that later on in this class. You can burn energy if you can go back to sleep. You can burn energy if you can eat well. You can burn energy because it'll make you more robust if you have a way to recover. You remember the story of Hydra, right? And Hydra was this mythical beast that every time you cut off his head, it became stronger, right? So if you could so every time you cut off a neck, it'll grow 2 more heads, right? So it was like if you want to deal with Hydra, just don't cut off his neck because he'll get stronger. You know how they killed Hydra? They stopped it from regenerating. The way the black community is dying, because we're not regenerating. We got to regenerate. And regeneration means that if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to get in this game, if you don't become disciplined and focused on your regenerating, these books won't mean shit. Oh, what's what I was going to say earlier? Granular. Where's granular? In many households, especially successful households and upper class households, the children of those households have 50 million more words than poor households. In their child, they learn 50 million more words, not 50, not 5,000, not 1 million. I said 50 million words. What does that do? That gives a child granularity. What do I mean by that? Let's say I tap Court on the shoulder right now. He's like, that hella irritated me. And then let's say when I was parking, I hit his car, and I hear it hella irritated him. And let's say I used his phone, I dropped his phone, that irritated him. And let's say I walked by and I didn't say hi, and that irritated him. If he doesn't have a language to separate the levels of those irritations, in his brain sees that as one level of irritation. So when you say, you know what, I'm feeling some kind of way. They got me pissed up. They got me fucked up. All that language is keeping it at one single level, where granularity allows you to use different words to describe different emotions, so there's no compounding. So then that gives you more emotional discipline, emotional control throughout your day. But if all those things I mentioned about Court is seen equal, by the time I tapped his shoulder, I would not be surprised if he don't hit me in my jaw. Because he compounded all those issues as being equal in his brain, because he didn't have the language to separate the value of those different situations. Right? So what happens is that this tap on the shoulder burns just as much energy as if I was to break his phone. This is what's happening in our communities. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're ignoring sleep, which you see very popular in corporate America. Oh, I slept, I stayed here all night long. I worked all really hard, because you're signaling your value. And you're not eating because you're like, who needs lunch? I gotta keep working. You're not drinking proper liquids. You're not exercising. You treat exercise as a statement of how to shape your body. You're not treating exercise as a statement of how to improve your competitive edge. Now, where does learning, meditation, and discovery come in? Learning comes in because at the end of the day, in order for your brain to function better and use resources more efficient, it has to learn more. Let's experience more. The more you learn, the more efficient your brain is use of resources. It's like your brain is like an old Ford truck when you're not learning. And so you're just burning gas. You're going 12, 14 miles a gallon. If you want your brain to function at a higher level, you got to get to a hybrid level where it burns really, really low. So learning is necessary. Meditation, self-awareness is everything. Because sometimes you could be burning unconsciously. You could be watching a movie going, this ain't bothering me. A rap song could be on, and it could be going in on somebody. And you just listen to the beat like, this is hella tight. I'm feeling this, right? But you're burning at a high-ass rate. And you're about to get into this homework, and you wonder why you can't study. The reason you can't study is because you're not even aware that this is happening. So you have to practice self-awareness. That's at the heart. Now, meditation goes way beyond that. But one of the greatest benefits that entrepreneurs receive from meditation is this deeper self-awareness. And that can also be achieved from running long distances, cycling long distances, walking long distances. Those are also forms of meditation that will allow you to dive deeper. A lot of times when somebody's jogging or running or exercising for a long distance, they're having deep conversations with themselves. The first one is, I don't want to do this. Then you start running, go, okay, I think it's going to be a good day, or you know what, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it. And then your oxygen, that your brain doesn't get a chance to communicate to what they call affect system, and your body starts to tell you, you ain't got that much oxygen, you might want to turn around and go home. And then there's maybe some aches in your legs or some temporary pains. But then eventually your brain catches up and says, hey, everybody cool down. Court's going for a jog. You know, he usually does 6 or 8 miles. And so all of a sudden, Court gets to the point where he goes, okay, I'm almost at the end. He's at 2 miles. But when he gets to the 3rd mile, he's almost in that zone. And he runs the next 3 miles almost like he's walking. Why? Because he had to have this full conversation where he had to push past his own barriers. Many of y'all in business, if you don't learn to push past your own mental barriers, obstacles are going to pile up, and they're going to become solidified to you, and they become real. So if you don't practice the art of pushing past mental barriers, you can almost just call it a day right now. You're too fragile to get into this game. Discovery. I'm going to tell you the most valuable thing you can do as an entrepreneur is go out and discover stuff. Break your routines. Get on planes. Go places. I often go travel to learn how to do business better. For example, some of the favorite places I like to go travel to learn great customer service or design techniques or business management techniques. I love to go to Seattle. Seattle's on fire. Like there's a lot of small businesses in Seattle that's on fire. Phoenix, Arizona, red state. Hey, I don't know what their politics are, but the way they treat you is on fire. Even what's the city next to Phoenix? Scottsdale. You go to the mall in Scottsdale. They're down there offer you a drink. It's just so the customer service is outstanding, right? The Jewish community in LA. I support a couple of businesses there just because I want to experience that customer service is cold-blooded. I went to this cleaners that was owned by this Jewish man in the Jewish community in LA, and I thought he was my brother because he made me feel so goddamn good. I brought my family and friends back just to experience. I said, man, y'all got to go in here and see this shit. This is goddamn amazing, right? New York is 1 million people fighting for $1. They ain't playing. I pick up game from that. And when I go to these places, and when I leave the land, go to Africa, go to Europe, go to South America, go to Mexico, you're gonna find all these new ideas that you discover from changing your patterns. Stay in discovery mode. Matter of fact, here's another thing that's crazy. In business, you're never gonna arrive at a point where you just do what you do because that's who you are. Every time you climb to a new level, you're dumb. So the level you came from, you're smart, but the level you're going to, you're dumb. So you're always walking into your own ignorance. So you ever meet an entrepreneur who claims they know already, they mean they're stuck. They don't know they told you that, but when they tell me that, you just told me you're stuck. Because any entrepreneur who's serious about climbing, they're curious as hell. They don't walk around trying to affirm what they know. They walk around trying to discover what they don't know. Most entrepreneurs walk in mystery. We're trying to figure out what is what and why is why. We don't walk around trying to affirm how much we know because we realize if we talk too much, we may miss a lesson. We're asking more questions. We're in more observation mode because at the end of the day, we don't know where we're not going. You know what's so crazy about this? Right now, based on where you are, let's say in the next 10 years, you make your first 2 or 3 million. You cannot right now in your chair imagine who you're going to become. You can't. It's not possible. You're going to change so much. The only thing you can do right now is give yourself permission to change. Next one. Is there any questions yet? I'm checking in on the questions again. Shabisha, yeah, you got a question, go to the microphone. Yeah, you go. Oh, you got one? You got one? 2. Okay, go ahead. Let's go to the microphone. We got Josh, the microphone man. Oh, we don't have Josh no more. Josh has gotten fancy. He done got a promotion. So Josh doesn't come to Josh used to adjust the microphone. Those of you at home taking the class for the first time, but now that Josh got a promotion, Josh just looked at the microphone like, "What y'all want me to do? I got a promotion. Go ahead." Yeah, that's okay. It's all good. So no, don't push it. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Test it.
Okay,
Yes.
there you go.
Okay. So what you just said when you were saying that you can't imagine who you're going to be and give yourself permission to change. How do you show up to that? Because like I've changed drastically over the last few years, and I know I have like a long road ahead of me. And I know like there are immediate things I need to change, and then there are things that take a long process. But it's hard for me to figure out how to compartmentalize those things to allow that space to happen organically, because I have certain levels of awareness of things that I know I need to change.
There's when you're learning a lot of this new information, it gives you a false sense of control, right? False sense of like, it's almost like you feel like you have a map, and all you need to do is just follow the map to go from point A to point Z, right? You gotta let that go. Mm-hmm. Let go of this whole control idea. Realize that your greatness is discussed in hindsight, not foresight, and that on your journey you're just discovering. You're discovering like when you think you know, when you think you understand everything, get uncomfortable, go cold. But if you should always be in a position of, like, for example, the entrepreneurs who trained me, they spent all day asking questions. Like literally, everybody would come around and be like, let me ask you something, Fern. What would you do in this situation here? I just want to hear your opinion. Right? They didn't spend time trying to validate themselves. This is where the not feeling like you're good enough becomes dangerous. Because when you don't feel like you're good enough, then you spend time trying to prove yourself every time you engage other human beings. Right? Especially for black folks, when you think that you're a minority or you're not qualified to be in that position, every time you see other human beings, you spend time trying to say, hey, I'm not a minority, I'm intelligent, I'm valuable, I should be here. But because you're doing that, you're missing out on your opportunity to learn. You're repositioning yourself to prove yourself. This is one of the reasons I can't stand social justice. Social justice sets us up for failure because the habits that come from social justice are anti-growth. Growth says, when you in a room, even if I'm in a room, if somehow you walk down the street, went inside of a building, you're like, oh shit, this is Make America Great Again convention? How the fuck I get here, right? What Nana wants to do is now figure out, hey, I want what these people are thinking. I want to know every individual in this room and what's on their mind. Even if they don't like me, now if he has a gun in his hand, I don't really want to talk to him. But I want to know what's on their mind, because if I just pass my judgment, I'm still wallowing in my own ignorance. So as an entrepreneur, walking in curiosity is stop proving yourself. Arguments are youthfully satisfying because it makes you feel like I'm validated. Okay, when you was a child, you were trying to validate yourself as an adult. So argument becomes your rhythm as a child because you're trying to say, hey, I'm valid too. Now that you're in the game, stop validating yourself. You're in the game. Because when you're arguing, you're going back to the LeBron James argument, which is, why are you arguing with the referee over one foul? You in this long-ass season, long-ass game with credentials up the yin-yang. For those on the East Coast, yin-yang is all kind of shit. But up the yin-yang, and you arguing, right? None of that means anything to you. You have to learn to say, like, don't get me wrong, you defend yourself. If something's coming for you, you got to defend yourself. Turn into Yosemite Sam or the Tasmanian Devil or whoever it's going to be to protect yourself. But if something's coming for you, walk in curiosity. Even when, okay, there's a statement that says, if I make you mad, it's probably something you don't know. That's what it means. And so you'll be surprised. You know, black folks, how we always mad a lot? That's letting us know there's something we don't know. And so we got work to do.
I think, Shakina, also, you speak for a lot of the perfectionists and control freaks. So I think it's a dope question. And so I think you got to always remind yourself. Have you ever played Tetris? You ever played Tetris? Now, a lot of times, perfectionists and control freaks suck at Tetris because when they see a particular shape that they need, they waiting for that shape. I'm gonna wait for that shape, and so all the other shapes come and it's building this little hill because the shape they need hasn't came yet. Well, at that time you lost. Sometimes you just got to get through that level and make it as flat as you can so it can keep disappearing so that you can keep playing the game. So when it comes to change, that's going to happen organically based on the things that fall down into your Tetris game. So it's the shape you have right now. What the hell can I do with this in this situation? Because it's going to change you. It comes into it crashes into your comfort zone, right? So you can't be like, well, you're not supposed to crash in my comfort zone right now. I was waiting for that problem so I can change like that. No, motherfucker, like this is where it's at, and we going to get through this, and then I'm going to allow this to shape and change me, and then we're going to keep it pushing. And as it come, a year from now, you're going to realize, damn, I have grown closer to the person I wanted to be. The sequence at which it came, fuck that compartmentalized shit. No, don't compartmentalize it. Just allow it to come. Be prepared for it. Be ready for it. Be open to it. And over time, you're going to grow.
Dope. Hey, by the way, just before Shabish go on the next question, black folks at home, you know, quite often we don't celebrate ourselves. I was watching a Jack in the Box commercial, and the Nigerian dancers that came out of Nigeria or West Africa that's real popular, they had a group of every other race besides Nigerian black folks doing the dances to this new chicken burger that's coming out, right? At some point, we're going to realize we're the unpolished gold. And so with me saying that, I just want to send a shout out to Danielle for these dope-ass slides. Flash another slide for me real quick, Marquita. Because these slides, honestly, like imagine walking into a black cafe or a black business, and you see beautiful images like this on the wall celebrating yourself. Like, if you want other people to respect you, first show up and love yourself first. Stop placing yourself secondary to everybody else. It's nothing wrong with loving yourself. Hey, man, like when I go to my Jewish partner's business, he celebrates himself. I go to my Italian partner's business, he celebrates himself. I go to my black person's business, he celebrates the Italian dude. Stop it. Learn to love yourself first. But anyway, that's a side note. That's a little commercial. Now back to the show that's at hand. Let's go ahead. Let's go with this.
So a couple of questions. First one was, you mentioned what happens in the brain happens to the body, and they're connected. So a clarifying question was, how does gut health, there's a lot of conversations about gut health and its role. How does that play into what
You mean the gut
mentioned?
communication or gut health? That's two different things.
Gut health was the question.
Yeah, so, okay. Does a gut play, okay, that's called affects. I don't want to go too deep into this because it's going to lose you. The way your gut feels, these gut feelings that you get are these, like the feeling of pleasant or uncomfortable or nervous or discomfort or just don't feel nothing at all. That's called effects. Effects don't really have, I would have to get really deep to get here. Effects are just an energy your body sends. Your brain tries to interpret it. Doesn't mean the effects, we understand it. So you can get a gut feeling, don't mean your brain can interpret what that gut means. So for example, that's what hungry is. Hungry is you get this feeling and you think it's because the person in front of you is pissing you off. It's not the person pissing you off. It's really you hungry when you eat the food. So a lot of times we try to interpret these emotional feelings. So for a lot of people, when you're feeling this, like you got me feeling some kind of way, it could be my belt's too tight. It could be these shoes hurt my feet, right? I can associate that with, oh, this person in front of me, this challenge in front of me, this obstacle in front of me, this goal I'm focusing on, whatever, and it really has nothing to do with that, right? And so quite often, our brain is guessing. I say this real quick, and then I get into this later in a year. Your brain does not react. Your brain predicts. Meaning that your brain doesn't see something and go, oh, that just happened, let me react. That's the popular science that's out right now that's been out for years that for some reason we just cannot change it, and it has not trickled down into business and economics yet. The brain predicts. Meaning that right now your brain is predicting everything it needs to do and it's sending the energy to do that, right? So when something happened, the brain runs a prediction. Sometimes the prediction is incorrect and it autocorrects itself, and sometimes it doesn't autocorrect itself. The brain predicts so cold. So you might say, well, now how does if the brain is predicting every move you make, how does it play baseball? When you throw a baseball at somebody, the brain says the body has predictions. It's called interoceptions. It has body predictions built into the body. So if a baseball comes at the body will catch the baseball. Then the brain goes, oh, shoot, you just caught a baseball. But the brain didn't have time to register. So there's certain actions the body has built into the brain. The body has a brain of itself, right? Because it doesn't have time to transfer it all the way to the brain and come back to your body, right? So it gets really complex, and I will get deeper as it's relative to the business lesson. But the reason I'm starting off with this basic foundation is because every year we hear people complain they can't read, or they can't study, or they can't focus, they can't stick with the lessons, or this shit's just too deep for me now. And I tried to read this book and it was too hard for me to read. And I always just want to tell them every time, go get some sleep, go eat. Go drink some water, go exercise, and watch how the book gets easier and easier and easier. But if you don't do those basics, it feels like you're trying to learn a foreign language in like 15 minutes. It seems almost impossible.
Dana, who's new to the community. Hey, Dana.
What's up, Dana?
She said, what about desire? So in the list of like sleep, eat, hydrate, exercise, touch, all of those things, what about desire? Like, what role does that play?
Okay, so desire is learned. Emotions and desires are learned. I know it's too early for this. All emotions are learned. Feelings are not learned. Feelings are universal. Emotions are learned. Emotions are learned by cues you pick up through your cultural experiences. So even your desires are shaped by your cultural experiences. There are some basic desires that the brain has, like, for example, food, energy, things that keep the body alive. So the body has basic desires based upon survival. But when you get into human desires, that's not what we're going to store for. That's not what we're running businesses on in many cases. And so desires quite often are skewed by cultural experiences, by language, by interactions with your circle of people. Matter of fact, it's not shared globally or universal.
Also, too, is these are the basics. So you can't, it's almost underneath that layer. So there's a whole nother layer above this, grit, all these things. And desire may can even be included in that space, but you can't get to all those things if you haven't slept.
Yeah, this
You're
is
not hungry.
foundational.
If you ain't done the work, if you ain't learning, if you ain't curious, if you ain't sleeping, you ain't got the energy. You be laying in bed like, I want to make $1 million. You can't.
You can't.
So,
and I don't want to take away. We got a lot of things we're going to teach, so it's going to go way past this. We're going down to like define like the DNA of an entrepreneur, right? We're breaking that cell open again all the way down to the DNA. The reason we want to go this deep into it, because we've always assumed that we're getting it. But when we look at black people across the board, intelligence is not enough. Like, we're not undereducated people. We're highly educated people. But why we're not able to like continue this process of educating ourselves for ourselves and enjoying the process is because we're underserving ourselves. And so the first goal of this class is, before I can help you use these tools and tactics, I got to get you where you can use these tools. Like, I could bring you the top of the line bat, ball, gloves, cleats, uniform, but if you are ran down, you can't even get to first base. And so at the end of the day, I got to work on getting you to the point where you're healthy enough to at least swing that bat and hit the ball hit the ball, just hit the ball, fucking bunt, right? And then we can get into other advanced movements. But what we don't realize is that no one's ever told us that, energy is directly tied to poverty. Energy is directly tied to the inability to change ourselves. And if we're not looking at, like, for example, we're introducing these ideas, but you're going to have to, like, for example, you may call the young lady who just was up on the microphone, Shakina, and say, hey, how do I balance my eating better? That's a different conversation. You have to go further than this conversation. I'm giving you a clue that, hey, turn your spotlight and look at look at those things. And if you're eating carbs and sugar all night long and just eating and drinking alcohol and all this kind of stuff, and you wonder why you're not showing up. Matter of fact, there's research that's currently going on that said that one of the reasons that people are smoking weed and drinking alcohol is to help them with the imbalance of their body. I think that helps you even understand. Isn't that cold? One of the reasons that we are drinking and smoking so much because of the imbalance. We're in a serious, serious imbalance. And so what I'm trying to say to you is that the imbalance is causing all these behaviors that we're like, well, where does this come from? I mean, think about how fast weed grew in our community. Like, at one point, we casually, and some people did, a lot of people didn't. To all of a sudden, it became a status statement. If you want to be real hood, you smoke a little weed, right? But why are people smoking weed? Let's not call them immoral or bad or dumb. Or no. If you malnutrition, you're not sleeping, you don't have a balance. Watch somebody who's going crazy. Now, don't get me wrong. All bets are off for serious psychological damage. All bets are off for deep trauma, right? But watch how people change when these basics are in place. If you don't believe me, go home right now and make sure your children are sleeping properly, make sure they're eating properly, make sure they engage in some form of exercise, make sure they're drinking plenty of water throughout the day, and watch how their emotions change. Here's what it is.
Next question. There's a couple questions around stress. So on one hand, we have like some of the best athletes. They come from really stressful backgrounds. And on the other hand, there's this conversation of too much stress is bad and it compromises you. So can you just kind of shed some light on those two ends of stress and kind of bring that?
So stress is not a bad thing. Stress is not a bad thing. Stress is a bad thing if you're not refueling. Once again, we're not trying to tell people. That's what the point I was trying to make. Don't think that it's all about creating this peaceful ease. Don't get me wrong. The more, if you're really dealing with a lot of changes, uncertainty, then you want to reduce stress. Like, for example, the person you're dating, it matters. If you're trying to do this entrepreneur shit and you got somebody who likes to argue all the time, you got a problem, right? If you like to holler at your kids all the time, you got a problem because it ain't the kids' fault. That's your fault, right? If you got, and stress quite often is an issue of reframing. Right? It's at the end of the day, we're often stressed because in our mind, we're embracing this kind of distortion called should. It should not be that way. Once you accept the world is what it is, a lot of that stress shit goes way the fuck down, right? But stress is not a bad thing. Stress is okay. Stress actually makes you stronger.
Stress is good. So there is a threshold of stress, and that the edge of stress is trauma on the other side of that. So if you're traumatized, then that's different. Stress we need. Like you heard the story, we talk about it over and over again every year, is that if you see a butterfly, before it's a butterfly in its cocoon fighting, and you say, oh man, it's trying to get out so it can fly, and you break the cocoon open for it, it'll never fly. because it needs the stress to strengthen its wings to fly. So, like, that's why we talked about last week, they bring kids to the hood to play against good kids, because they want their kids to play against kids with that kind of stress, because it creates that tension. It makes them better. It makes them break themselves down. It humbles them. All those things. So stress is good. It's learning how to manage it, learning how to compartmentalize it in a way that you can still perform. Anderson Silva was a middleweight champion in MMA for many years, one of my favorite MMA fighters. And he said, in my dojo, we don't even use the word pressure. It's meaningless to us. It's meaningless because all you have is the moment. All you have is the moment. When my son was playing hoop, and I finally taught him how to, make accurate free throws in practice. 10 out of 10s. When I get you doing 10 out of 10 on the free throw line, you're good. But then what I did, as soon as he hit 10 out of 10, I'd stand next to him in his ear and say, you trash, boo, boo, you trash, you trash. Guess what? He went back down to 2 out of 10 because I added a new level of stress. You suck. So you scary. You can't even handle just your pops in your ear like that. You garbage. And he'd be wanting to cry and be like, I'm not garbage. And like, well, then make them then. And so over time, 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, back up to 8, 9 out of 10 because that added level of stress. I'm like, dude, when you play away, they're going to be doing that to you anyway. So I want to get you comfortable under that kind of stress level. So stress is good, just learning how to manage it.
Okay, we're going
Last
to...
one.
Well, it's okay. Try it. We're going. Well, let's pause and come back to it. Let's add it up, but pause and say that one, and we'll come back to that because I want to keep moving and come back to questions. Kind of dance back and forth. So let's take a pause on that one real quick. Let's move to the next one. Next thing we want to talk about is intuition. So, in this class, your intuition is your enemy. Let me say it again. A lot of things we're going to teach in this class are not going to feel normal. If it felt normal, then you're not changing anything. It's going to feel so weird to you, a lot of these ideas we're going to introduce to you, that just be prepared for your intuition to say, nah, I don't feel good about that. Every time your intuition tells you you don't feel good about something we taught you, go cold and research it for yourself. That's the answer. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do. I can't do a backflip at this age anymore, nor can I be a dancing bear to make you happy. So if you're at this point, when you feel your intuition, I'm going to introduce so many ideas to you throughout the year where your intuition say, I don't feel that. And if you research, you go, oh, shit. Because a lot of your feelings is your cage. You're caged by your feelings. A lot of your ideas and your limitations of your beliefs are based upon your feelings. And so in business, quite often as you grow in business, if you go with your intuition, you're actually creating your own glass ceiling. In business, rarely will you ever use intuition. And we will teach you what to use in its place. But trust me when I say this, when you feel intuition, pause and go cold. Because more than likely, the intuition is alignment with something that you're already comfortable with. And whether you know it or not, this is going to sound harsh. And for those of you who are sensitive right now, here's where I start to piss you the fuck off. If you start to feel comfortable about this, it's because the lifestyle you have is your comfort zone. The lifestyle you have right now is your comfort zone. That means if you say tomorrow, no, I want to change, you have to walk in discomfort. So your intuition is there's another signal saying, hey, this ain't what we do. This don't make sense to us. What the hell are they talking about? Yep, I told you they wearing baseball caps. Don't trust them. So just be aware, your intuition throughout this class is going to be rough. Now, here we go. Money, time, attention. Now, I grew up in East Oakland, and I hang out with black folks from here to the East Coast. Some black folks who are south of America and from Africa and Europe. And I tell you, a common theme in our community is that we value money. Don't mess with black people with money. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? We value our time. You got me over here waiting on this shit. My time is big, man, my time is money, partner. Don't disrespect me. And then last, our attention. Well, I'm going to introduce you to something else totally different. As entrepreneurs, we value time, attention, and money. You can also say attention, time, and money. So I'm going to have to sit back and kind of get into this one for a second. Time is not infinite, it's finite. So you only have so much time. Time is also like the wind. The wind can blow out a candle and the wind can spread a fire. And if you don't understand how to use the wind, you become a victim of the wind. Time is something that you have to understand how to properly use it. If you put money in front of time, quite often it's because you have a poor understanding of the value of time. Each individual in here, if you become an entrepreneur, you have to set a number. What is my value? What am I worth? Your worth cannot be dictated by the paycheck you receive from your job. Those are two different ways of thinking. So quite often when you start a business, let me start with the first time distortion that we witness. Now, how long will my business take to blow up? We don't realize that in many cases that could be 9 and 10 years, 15 and 20 years. A lot of times when you see these .com companies, those boys down in Silicon Valley, and you see all these billionaires and millionaires, what you didn't see was a process. You saw the outcome. Remember I said observation knowledge is the weakest form of knowledge? You saw the outcome. You didn't see those boys when they were sleeping on the floor, grinding their ass off, when they had no money, when they was driving Datsun B210s to work, and Honda Civics first generation to work, and Volkswagen Bugs to work, right? You saw them when they were in Lamborghini and their big houses and lifestyles of rich and famous type of things. But you missed that whole process. What you don't realize that the first thing is that there's a long process. So let me tell you why that's a cold thing. When you're on a 10-year journey and you don't know where you're going, there's a point of uncertainty of, am I even going the right way? It's so easy to quit. It's hard to even measure progress when it's over a long period. For example, if progress is between here and the next 30 minutes, you can easily measure that. You can say, you can create these notches, and when I hit here, when I hit here, when I hit here, and I hit here, I move from point A, B, C, D, and E, F, G. But when it's over 10 years, you lose sight of the notches, the pinpoints, right? You lose sight of that. So now you're walking and you're not sure. You start saying, you know what, I don't even think this is working. They don't give me a job. I don't think this making any sense. I ain't seen no movement. I've been doing this for how long now? And really it's like 1 year on a 10-year journey. And this walk of poverty is part of it. Why do you have to experience poverty? Because if you didn't experience poverty, how would you break your ego? Your ego would tell you, if you didn't experience poverty, you would think you know everything. Right? But in that 10-year time, your ability to see yourself, understand yourself, and measure yourself in that period is close to none. In a 10-year time, you're going to lose status. In 10 years of time, you're going to lose status. So when you lose status, can you continue to walk that 10-year path? I don't think you guys really understand. Like in a 10-year path, you don't know who you're going to become. That means you're walking into the land of uncertainty, randomness. Nothing's known to you. You are totally taken off of your foundation that you walk on is, I know what I know. Now you got to walk in a land where you don't know what you know. And then in that process, do you cheat the process because in the end, it's just too uncomfortable not knowing what you don't know? Do you need to lie to yourself on that journey and create false relationships and wasted time? Second thing about time. On a long journey, the people fucking matter. See, if you want to develop a business partner, can I be a business partner with this person for a long time? This person has to be a valuable person, an intelligent person. If he's a pessimist or a cynic, he will self-fulfill his own journey and become the worst partner ever. If he lacks integrity, he's just setting me up for a long-term betrayal. If he's if he's short-sighted, lacks the ability to focus, money hungry, and think that success is going to give him happiness, this person is going to portray our long journey. You're about to travel a 10-year journey. There's cases, well, this person became successful in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. The reason they're news is because they're that rare. It's a long-ass journey. And then even after the 10 years, the journey just starts. Because now you got to maintain success, grow success. Because success is not about, you can't stay here. If you don't keep climbing, all of a sudden, if you're not climbing, you're sinking. So in this 10-year of growth, development, and change, you can be so impatient with yourself that you cut your value and yourself. And that inner voice starts saying, I told you this wasn't for you. See, ain't that much. And it's hard out here for black people. Ain't no way in the world you're going to make it. As a minority in this system, it's no way in the world they're going to trust you. You can't. I go get me a job. I quit. I don't believe this shit's going to work. Let's say in a 10-year journey, the first idea is the worst idea, time-wise. Like Court said, if you let go, that bad idea is going to give you the good idea. You just got to start the journey. Time, also, let me show you another side of time. Let's say you take off, you decide you want to multitask. I'm going to run 3 businesses, come out the gate. You are going to competitive lose in a competition. You know why? Because you don't understand the value of time. Let's say me and Court start the same business. We don't know each other. But I'm going to start 2 other businesses.
Oh, my God.
I gotta spread myself so thin in those businesses. The amount of time it would catch me to catch, by his 5th year, I'm losing time because I'm spreading myself so thin, I only can learn so much at one time. Where because he's focused on one thing, the way he's using time, his aggressive growth is smoking me. So when you start a business, having multiple ideas, dump the weakest ideas and go with the strongest idea. Because the weaker ideas is slowing you down and you're treating time like it's infinite, like you have plenty of time to be around forever. You only have so much time to do this shit for. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to die at a certain point. I know for those of you in the class who are under 25, y'all think y'all about to live forever. But 25 years from now, y'all going to be thinking about death really heavy. Because about 25 years from now, every day you're going to be rolling dice like, whoo, I made it, goddamn, I woke up, right? Because at the end of the day, at 75, that clock starts to get real to you. So time is always real. Putting off tomorrow what you can do today. Because your perception of time is so distorted, right? Time is also understanding that your input has to be greater than your output. You will never work yourself to wealth. Because even when you make more money, you will spend more money. Let me give y'all some game. When they come to these athletes, they run cold game on them. They don't teach them wealth. They come out there with money. See, when I give them with you, I say, I'm going to give you $100 million. But what you don't realize is that your lifestyle is going to go up, and that $100 million has to last you for how long? Because when this sport is over, because you don't understand the value of your time and your attention, you didn't apply your time and attention correctly. When this sport is over, if the NBA doesn't pick you up, you eventually go broke.
4 years on average. Because
money was your focus. So time is number one. Now, attention is going to get cold. Remember I just told you your resources matter. Everything that grabs your attention is stealing from you. As an entrepreneur, you got to dump anything that's not worth your attention. Where you apply your attention is what you become. Let me say this once again. Where you apply your attention is what you become. If you apply your attention to watching Housewives of Atlanta, that's who you are. You're a Housewife of Atlanta, an analyst. That was kind of funny. Okay. Your attention is everything. I'm talking about your unconscious attention is just as important as your conscious attention. Your unconscious attention is that, for example, on the weekend, go for a hike. Start going for walks when you have to process deep thoughts. Because if you're in a noisy environment, your chances of processing real complex thoughts is close to none. Your attention on social media right now, on the internet culture, and the internet age, which is one of the greatest ages for diversity, they're going for one thing, your attention. When you turn on that computer, there are so many software programs and designs designed to capture your attention. Capitalism loves your attention. Once you understand the value of your attention, you realize you have to protect that. That means that when you're walking down the street, your phone is in your pocket, not in your hand, looking at it. When you're on BART, if you're going to be on BART, you're not reading Facebook articles, you're studying some material to help you advance yourself. When you're exercising, what are you listening to? When you drive down the street, what are you listening to? When you're at home, what are you watching? What are you listening to? Who are you talking to? What is capturing your attention? You can measure your character by what's capturing your attention. If you say, no, I really want my life to change, these are some basic things you need to pay attention to. Your attention, if your time, your attention is used accurately, the money will fall in place. Money is not the most important thing. If you make money the most important thing, what you're going to find is quite often you're going to be trapped by money. Money will create your limitation. Money has to be a benefit of managing your time and attention. Can you just write that one down? Because I'm going to open up some questions in a minute. I'm gonna open up questions after this one. Wealth, status, and money. In this class, we don't teach how to hustle, how to come up, how to make a quick dollar. We don't teach a short game. We don't teach money as a source of happiness. We teach wealth. What is wealth? Anybody knows what wealth is? Somebody right now, you guys type in. So if you guys know what wealth is, type it into the chat real quick before I talk about what is wealth. I do my dun 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 dun. Okay. Wealth is really nothing but freedom. Let me say this again, for those of you who don't know. Wealth is a form of freedom. Wealth is also a positive sum game, meaning that if you become wealthy, wealth involves making other people successful. Wealth requires you to think about building infrastructure. Wealth is, and you cannot become wealthy by working for wealth. Wealth comes from having assets and businesses that actually drives your wealth. Meaning that there's something that is making you money when you're asleep. We're not going to teach you in this class how to just sell an apple. We're going to teach you how to get other people to sell apples for you. Wealth requires for somebody to follow you. See, if you're not good with friends, you're not good with dating people, you're not good with social structures, you're going to be horrible managing people. If you can't manage people, you can't build wealth. This is cold game. So all this, I don't need nobody, it's all about me, I don't care about anybody else, I only think about me, narcissism, I. Getting on social media telling everybody about the sandwich you ate, the place you went, the dress you wearing, the event you having. This is all training you, moving you away from wealth. Wealth is about empathy. It's about seeing other people. Because at the end of the day, you don't grow something and you can't move something unless you understand who it needs to grow upon, or who it needs to grow amongst. If you don't understand people, you can't sell products to people. Now, status is a zero-sum game. In order for you to be at the top of status, somebody has to fall. So everybody in this room and everybody listening to this class can be wealthy, and we don't step on each other's feet. Wealth means that we all can be wealthy. We all can grow in wealth. And we can all become wealthy and extend our wealth to other people within this circle. But status means that if I gotta be great, I gotta take somebody off the top. And so for somebody to be at the top, somebody has to be on the bottom. Many of us are in business playing a status game, not understanding that we should be playing a wealth game. What do you mean by status game? You're not trying to make money because you're trying to have impact in this world and create personal freedom. You're trying to make money to create your personal value and show other people how you're greater than them. Or you think status is going to make you happy because you're still stuck in high school popularity game, which is based upon status. I'm going to give you a personal theory of mine, and just hang with me for a second. This is my personal theory. And just follow my line of logic. First is social media. We're all new to social media. This is about 15, 20 years ago. We were watching social media, right? MySpace, I think it is, whatever it was. And we got a chance to see people show up on MySpace and taking pictures of the car they had, the house they had, the shoes they're wearing, the clothes they're wearing, right? And we didn't know that's just a picture. That these people don't live like this every day, but they live like that at this moment. We didn't realize that this exciting life, this person's like, yeah, I got these drinks, I'm popping, I'm loving it, life is great. We don't realize that out of 365 days, that's only 3 days of that year. The rest of that year, they're just working with a boring-ass life, get up, take the kids to school, jump on BART, go to work, jump off BART, pick the kids up, feed the kids some food, go to homework, go to sleep, and do it again. But what we think is that they living that life. And at that time, our life wasn't so good. And we felt, wow, as I watch all these people in this great space of status, I feel bad about my status. I really feel bad. So guess what we did? Here comes this thing called Me Too, racism, homophobia. And we say, you know what, that's not right. So then I grab the microphone, I grab my keyboard, and I say, Black Lives Matter, and it's unfair what they did to George Floyd, and defund the police, and whatever else I can come up with. And y'all be like, damn, Nana, that's powerful. Damn, Nana's militant. Damn, he's deep. He's intelligent. And then I say to myself, this is what I'm doing. It's called a status game. Because I say, this problem's important. That means you're important. If you're important because I said you're important, which means I'm important, which all I'm doing is status signaling. Social media has got us to a point where you status signal. The only problem with status signaling, when you get status signaling, you're playing the angry game. Because see, that shit ain't real. You're literally fighting. You see status game in politics, and you see it, it's almost a necessary evil. And you see it in like social circles, you see it in community circles. But if you're gonna go move towards wealth, you gotta put status in its right place. It's not that we can't use status at right time as a tool, but you can't live within the status game. If you mix status and money, you got hustling. That's what hustling is. It's a recipe of status. Like, so you see somebody going, I just gotta keep making money. Like I asked the other last week, I said, why do you need more than $1 billion? What are you fighting for? Are you fighting for impact or are you fighting for status? Like literally, Jeff Bezos should be able to just literally say, fuck y'all, I'm out. Y'all figure out what y'all want to do. I'm taking my cut, I'm out. Literally, because you can't make no more money. Now, he might just love watching boxers go on to a conveyor belt and be shipped out with a smile and be like, ooh, this is almost like sex to me. But for the rest of us, I don't know about you, the average person after 10 years of doing the same thing every day and every week, even if you're evolving within it, you want to do other things in life. But what you find with some people is that they're so addicted to status, no matter how much money they have, no matter what title they have, it becomes blinding, and it becomes the destroyer of wealth. Money is a transfer of wealth. Let me give y'all some games so you can think about this differently. When I was a kid, when I was a little bitty boy, I was 5 years of age, and we grew up really poor, and we had finally moved to maybe six years of age. We had finally moved to 61st and Bancroft, and we didn't have a lot of money. So my grandmother would send me to the store, and would say, "Hey, we need some milk and some eggs and some vegetables, and put it on our IOU." And I would grab the product and I would take it home. And then when my grandmother would receive her check at the end of the month, she would pay on her IOU, right? That was a form of currency. That's what currency is. It's a promissory note. It's a way of saying it's a credit and debit. It's a credit and debit relationship, right? So if I say, "Hey, farmer, I want something for you," we bartering services. We use this note as a credit and debit tool. That means what I'm just saying to you is that money is not controlled by the dollar bill that you all fall in love with. This is why you can't go money, time, attention. You can create currency at any point. At any point. It requires a certain amount of cultural stability and trust, but at any point. And why am I saying this to you? Some of you are sitting in this class thinking, oh my God, I want to be successful because I want more status. It's going to ultimately betray you. Because it gets really complex. See, when business first starts, it's very simple and it's very fun. The more, mind you, it stays fun if you grow with it. But if you don't grow with it, it becomes overwhelmed. It becomes like, it just overwhelms you. Because it just becomes so complex, you feel like, I can't do this. And it's not that you couldn't do it, you just stop growing in the process, because once you got your status, you start working on stuff. Here's the last point. The human brain has a major struggle. This is neuroscience again. The brain tries to decide, do I want to get ahead or do I want to get along? Those are two dominant thoughts that are constantly running in your mind. Do I want to get ahead? Do I want to get along? So you guys have seen in our past years where somebody's like, they want to start a business, but they want to go on Facebook every day and tell everybody what they're doing. I'm going on 32 days of working on my business. This is day number 3, number 4, number 5. They're stuck between status, which is they want to get along. Where getting ahead sometimes means you have to surrender status. That means you have to disappear. If I'm trying to work on something, I don't have time to be on social media. Plus, it's boring. All right, y'all, I just wrote another paper. I'm going to ball it up and try again. All right, guys, I'm writing another paper. Okay, guys, I'm still typing on my keyboard. Okay, my keyboard dirty. I'm sitting here, I'm writing, about to eat me some lunch. Y'all be like, could you please stop posting that shit on social media? You clouding my space, right? The reality is that building a business it's not sexy. It's not like the Sharks, and they're going to come in and, idea, and people show up, and, employees, and then new computers, and new desks, and it's a lot of grind. It's a lot of tape and hangers, and patches, and taking spitballs and using it as plugs, whatever the hell you can to get to that next level. And the reality is that the stuff that's, when you focus on getting along, it becomes a distraction. Last point, and I'm going to let Court tap into this one. Remember we said, and going back to the previous list about touch being necessary for the body's energy? A lot of times in the hood, we find these loved ones. Why do we have loved ones? Loved ones are part of what's keeping us alive. One of the hardest things you're going to go through in this class is when you realize you need to change your circle. You know why it's going to be hard? Because that circle is what kept you alive when you was running low on resources. So when you was in the hood and you was eating bad and you was burning a lot of energy on stupid stuff, you was overdrawn all the time, your loved one was what kept you sane. Like literally, other human beings help us manage our resources. Other human beings can steal our resources and help us balance our resources, right? So your loved one, the person you call and be like, man, we grew up together, man. We've been some real shit. You my dog, yeah, you my dog. Man, come on, let's just drink on, let's just chill for a minute. You're doing that because that's balancing your psychological resources, your energy. When I tell you to cut that energy, it's like you cutting off your right arm. Even though that right arm is toxic, it's going to be close to damn near impossible. The only way you're going to be able to do that successfully, and when I say cut off, we don't mean stop talking to them. Don't be silly. What we're talking about is you don't spend all that time with that person. Remember, time, attention, money. Time is valuable. What you're going to find is that if you get your resources balanced, it's easier for you to move forward and move on. But if your resources are imbalanced, you have a need for that person because you're out of balance. So part of you getting new circles of people in your circle is that balance. Do you want to hit on this wealth, status, money?
I think one is that in our culture today, a lot of times we confuse social currency with currency. So with the Instagram culture, it's super easy to get social currency. If you show up with a picture and you're a black male and you show up with a picture and you got a pistol holding your hand, you're gonna get some social currency. You're gonna get status because you're separating yourselves and that you create an intriguing situation. If you're a female and you posting cooking videos or whatever you posting that's moderate, and you say fuck that shit, and you decide to put something on where you half naked, and you get a whole bunch of likes, and you get consumed with the desire to get social currency versus understanding that the two don't match. I have people that I work with millions of followers on Instagram, 500,000, 250,000, and they make $0 because people just want to watch. I don't want to fuck with you. I don't necessarily want to exchange any value with you. I just want to watch what you're doing. So once you understand the difference, then the work is how do I focus on adding my value, adding value in a way and using the tools in a way to where I understand the business I'm in. Being popular, that shit is old. It's just old. It's just old. Now, like I had mentioned earlier, if you establish yourself as a human being and you establish yourself in a way that gives you currency amongst your peers, then that's value. That's like money. That's like money. So some of us can walk in restaurants and they don't make us pay. Or some of us have relationships with our vendors or customers or whatever, and they'll wait to send us invoices because they know it's good. You started off like, hey, when you show up, I need you to pay me for that shit. And over time, because of your solidness as a human, you went from 30-day terms to 60 to 90 because they know who you are and they fuck with you like that. So there's relationships I have with certain factories over time that, man, just pay me. I'll ship you $50,000 worth of product. I know you good. So when I get to it, I'll send you the invoice. Because that's currency within itself. Understanding the difference, that popularity shit got us so fucked up. That social currency shit got us so fucked up. Status has very little value in today's society. Because once you get to the real truth of like, okay, some of my mentors that I follow on Instagram got 500 little measly ass followers, and they billionaires. 539 to be exact for one of them. And he's a billionaire. And if I text, hey, yo, Court, I need some advice, bro. Can you give me some advice? Sure. Here's some game. And guess what? He understands the difference. Us don't get that shit twisted. Social currency, status versus money, two different things.
In this class, we will be engaging in this thing called macro-micro. I want to go over this real quick. If you don't understand what's happening on a big picture, you will often waste your time discussing things on a small picture. So macro is the big picture. Micro is a small picture. So let's give an example. I watched a Netflix show about the crack era, and I lived through the crack era. And micro, I remember all the micro conversations we were having. What's wrong with black people? Black people becoming immoral. Oh my God, this is happening. Like we focus on a lot of small stuff, right? Oh, the crackhead down the street. I hate that gangster ass dude, right? We didn't realize that, wait a minute, America was actually doing business with Iran and Nicaragua and dropping crack in our backyards and weapons, right? But if you don't understand the bigger picture, and then you don't realize that because of the crack era, we lost, was it 3 million black men to the prison system, and then add the amount of black men we lost to death, and then you wonder why relationship music changed? Because we changed population structure, right? In this class, we will jump often between macro and micro analysis around business, where we'll say, hey, here's a popular trend, but let's look at it macro. Why is that trend actually happening? Or this is a popular behavior. Why is it happening? Because of micro, the relationship between micro and macro. It's important that you understand the macro of things as well as the micro. They both have their value, but a lot of times we can find ourselves arguing over something that we're both victims of. Because like for example, most of us don't realize the history of housing in America. And so you might drive through a certain neighborhood and think, oh, these people are greater than you. No, they were subsidized. That's a welfare house. It's just that you don't know it's a welfare house because that ain't what welfare looks like to you, right? And you don't understand that. So in the end, you might think you're lesser than, not realizing that what Court said earlier, you actually took less and did more. And so quite often our value is skewed because we don't understand the bigger stories, and we don't see value in ourselves, our value in our products, our values in our culture, our value in things around us, because we have a distortion on the micros and the macros. And so we're going to take time and dive deeper into the macro and micro distortion a little bit later. Before we jump into this one, do you have a couple of questions? Let's take about 4 more questions, and we got 8:44, so you got to make the quick questions, and then I want Court to really dive into this next one. And you can also approach your questions. So we have questions. Come in.
This one is coming from Manny, who's also new from YouTube.
What's up, Manny?
How you doing, bro?
His question was, in roles of leadership, how do you communicate in real time with your team or your staff or your crew? while holding space personally for the learning, changing, and application of the tools acquired?
You know, that's okay. So a couple of things. One, first thing is first. This is kind of complex. That's a very complex question. I'm gonna try to answer as fast and rich as I possibly can. And if I don't service it well enough, Manny, hold me to the fire so I can make sure that we really dive into that, because that's a hell of a good question, Manny. First thing is first. Remember, walk in curiosity, speak with arrogance. Keep it real. If you speak with curiosity, you'll lose all your trust, right? But when you speak in confidence, learn to articulate vulnerability. So what I mean by is that, like, I always communicate with my staff when I learn something new. I often admit when I'm wrong about something. I don't try to mask it. But when I am making a decision, that's what I knew at the time. But my staff also understands that at any point, I can find out I'm wrong, and I'm comfortable with that. So what I don't do is I don't anchor myself in the idea of right and wrong or all-knowing and ignorance. Wisdom tells me that you're always going to be wrong, that what you know is what you know for now. And because we're walking in curiosity, we're comfortable finding out tomorrow that we're wrong. But we also explain that to our staff that this is what we know right now. If I find out something different, I'll bring that to your attention. But the staff needs me to be bold in my actions, bold in my leadership. Otherwise, if I walk with I don't know, but just come with me, that won't really breed trust. And so the challenge there is, when you're on your free time, seek out, curious, learn. If you're in a discussion, instead of you trying to argue, there's a saying that we have, which is learn not to speak with offense, learn to not listen with defense, and learn to leave even your greatest adversary with their dignity. That comes from John Hope. Learn to walk in a real peaceful space. And then here's another thing too. When you're leading people, sometimes let's not frame leadership as that you always have to be right. See, if we get rid of the hero effect, and we ain't talked about this, but I'm gonna go over this real fast. The hero effect is this idea that you're leading the team. No, you're coaching great people. That means many times you need to be wrong. If you're always right, you have a weak-ass team. That's called status. That's a status-based team. So at the end of the day, you're actually encouraging contribution where everybody's always finding that they're wrong, including you, right? And it's how you control the environments or create the space for the best idea to rise to the top is what makes your team strong. Not this whole idea, let's get rid of this whole idea of a super smart person. When you see strong white institutions, it's not because it's some smart, super white guy. It's great teams of great people, right? And you design teams according to the challenge. For example, if we took the Celtics from the 80s and put them against 2020 team, that's the wrong team. It's designed wrong, right? The team has to be designed according to the challenge. And so as a coach is not all-knowing. A coach is they're pulling far back from the everyday responsibilities to be all-seeing, and then to play roles of, hey, let me ask you a question. Hey, why did you just do that? Hey, you thought about this? Hey, let's come together and let's process this idea. Now, once the idea is processed, to move the team from the thinking space to the action space, that might be your role. But it's not necessary to own all these smart ideas. So hopefully that gives you that's a deep-ass question, and it definitely requires, I'm probably going to put that in a whole class in the near future, but that's a hell of a good question, and thanks for bringing that one to the table. Is it you said two questions, or that's it?
No, that was it for me.
Okay, go ahead. Shakina, real quick.
Sorry if it's not the right position, y'all. So my question was, when you guys were talking about time, attention, and money, or actually I think it was when you were talking about, where is it at? Wealth, status, and money. And so my question was, what do you say to people that always feel that they need to be doing something attention-wise And how do you create dead space to be intentional about processing things in introspection? Like you were saying, how what you put your attention into matters. I'm a person that always tries to stay busy, because if I'm not busy, I feel like I don't have value. So like I'm like working 14-hour days, and I know in the moment it feels really good because I'm like, I got done 100 things today. But then, like you said, I'll sleep my 8 hours, but I'm totally burnt out and I'm eating and I'm exercising. But I think that it's valuable to dive deeper into like creating the harmony, because you could still be exercising and sleeping and eating, but if you're poorly spending your time and your resources, you could still be shooting yourself in the foot.
I mean, one, to mention first, that's a serious fear there. You got to call out. Because the story you're telling yourself, when you feel this discomfort based upon the story you told yourself, your response is keep working, work harder, work more, right? And there is a level of processing that has to happen of, so what happens if I don't work? Like, even if you have to test it and experience it, and then even when you change, don't think because you said in your mind, I'm going to change, your whole body goes along with that choice, right? You will say it, but your body is used to this old routine and be like, don't you want to go back to that old routine? You're going to have to slowly. Change requires sometimes putting things in its place and then evolving it, right? And so it's a strategy on how do you evolve from kind of an anxiety type of movement as far as how you show up to your job to, okay, I want to leverage my time different. Because leveraging your time accurately or knowing how to use your time effectively is the key, not just using time. And so to get to a point where you're improving leveraging of your time, it's going to be expansion of ideas and language that can help you communicate. Because remember I said last week, your superpower is in words. If you don't have the language to kind of talk yourself out of this, you can't get out of it. Because the parts of your brain that can get you out of it has to be activated by the words you use, right? And so, remember I told you last year, you tell a lot of stories, but your stories are burying you. Some of those stories you gotta let go, because they're dealing with what we call narrative fallacy. You tell yourself so many stories that when you decide you want to change, all those stories are saying, nah, I don't give a shit what you want to do. This is who you are. When that's not true. None of that stuff is true. But if you can tell yourself so many narratives that you can't get outside your narratives. You just start believing that's who I am. We call it limiting beliefs as an easy choice of words. But the reality is that when you live it so hard, and here's the thing, there's a natural evolution coming from not having to having, right? And you gotta say that. You gotta know that you gotta go through your evolution. And in evolution, you're gonna have bad negative habits because you came from a space that was really rough. And now as you're evolving out of it, don't think because you make more money, your habits just change overnight. You have to make conscious efforts. And also, if you're not practicing awareness exercises, you're probably making one step every day and making 2 steps back because you're not aware of what you're doing. And so self-awareness cannot be external responsibility, because if you put it on other people, it's too, you ask them to police you when they're trying to police themselves. Ultimately, the number one goal of self-policing is ourselves. That's the number one person, because we know ourselves in the shadows. Like when we're not in the shadows, like for example, you meet people outside right now and everybody's watching, we're one person. At nighttime, when we're by ourselves, we're another person, right? And when we're around that person who ain't no good, we're another person, right? And so what I'm just saying is that person, all those people are the same person. And if you don't have a deeper level of working on self-awareness, but if you're working on this idea of, nah, I ain't gonna think about it. Nah, let it go. Nah, it's just too much. Nah, I'm gonna push away, as opposed to, let me dive into that. If you stop processing, you stop being aware. Okay. Anything else? That's it?
It wasn't a previous question, but maybe you can dig deeper. This is something that you helped me with, but I know that we have a whole bunch of new students, so I'm on the path and working on it, but I haven't got it. But one of the things that I learned over the years of coming here was taking things in baby steps.
Yeah.
which I still suck at
Yeah.
because I'm a dreamer and I
Yeah.
have like these
Which
grandiose
is nothing wrong with that.
ideas. But my problem comes down to like my toxic perfectionism and like the superhero story I tell myself in my head of like, I'm young, I'm a single mom, I got this, ain't nobody finna do it for me, like I gotta figure it out.
Right.
And again, I'm very aware that this is a story, but that's also why I want to call it out. So for people, if you're sharing the same ideas or thought processes, like it's not going to happen overnight, but maybe you can just like speak to like how do you work through those things of like the process of the long-term process and of the storylines, whether they be positive or uplifting or negative. And because I think that even as I'm going through this for year 5 or 6 or whatever, I'm still having to revisit all of the stuff
Yeah.
from the previous years in different ways. And I think that's a valuable conversation to have now with a lot of change that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's because I'm trying to be time responsible. You want to try that real quick?
Sure. It's a big question.
Yeah.
It's a solid question. I think
Real solid.
I think it goes back to who you are, and it goes back to the stories that we tell ourselves. I think over time, this isn't a right or wrong class. This isn't a right or
Yeah.
wrong mentality. It's not us saying how do you change your story and tell your story, the right story for yourself. If your story is aliens came down to you and told you to do X, Y, and Z, and that's why you're working. If it's working at the moment, then right now it's working. As soon as your story you tell yourself gets dry, you have to recognize it's dry and divorce yourself from it immediately and tell yourself a new story. So if what got you out of the horrible fucking situation that you had to get out of was to tell yourself, you know what, if nobody's going to do it, I got to do it, then that's a great story. But then when you're ready to go to different levels or you're ready to expand, let's use that word, expand, where now your success is leaning on the help and use of other people, you got to let go of that fucking story. It gets dead. So you got to embrace and find a new one. But it's a big question that's going to get answered over time, but that's kind of my short version.
Yeah, and I think also what helps with baby steps is you got to be around other entrepreneurs. There's just no way around that. If you're not around other entrepreneurs, those baby steps don't even make sense. And we'll get deeper into that because I want to we got a few more questions, and I definitely want to hear Will Success make you happy. Go ahead.
All the questions are from new people.
That's
fine.
fine.
New people,
Let's
what's
ride,
up,
new
new
people.
Shout out to them for.
Hey, new people, listen, let's get in that same car and let's keep riding, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So this one comes from Tennille, and she
Tennille, how you doing?
asked, what are some things a person can do if they are someone that struggles with not feeling good enough?
Okay, that's going to be a long journey. That's a hell of a question. One, this is going to sound like I'm not selling to you. Stay with us because we're going to have to help you grow out of that space. It's not, and here's another thing too, Tennille. It's not you. It's not just you. I know, like when we're going through these kind of things, it always feels like it's just us. You're going to find out it's most of us. And I mean, literally, okay, a gangster on the block is somebody who don't feel good enough. A lot of times a gangster on the block is showing you his fear. He's not showing you he's gangster, right? It's so popular in our community, it's almost normalized. And it's a lot of brainwashing, historical trauma that I don't want to get into fault focus because I think fault focus is horrible. But it's something that, like, we spend a whole year working on it, and we're going to work on a lot of emotional intelligence that's going to help you process it. We're going to work on this thing called cognitive distortions, or these ideas and things that we tell ourselves that's feeding into us not feeling like we're good enough, right? We're going to also help you accept that your shit's going to stink sometime. I think as human beings, we forget we take shits. And I know I say that every time, and people always look at me like, Nana, why you keep saying that? Because the human being, we try to purify ourselves, and then we hold ourselves to those standards, and then we don't feel like we're good enough, right? When we start to realize that, hey, all of us are flawed, all of us got dents on our vehicles, all of us got some problems, all of us got issues, and that we're all climbing on a journey, and the Facebook story is a big-ass fucking lie. Like, the rate of death and anxiety, I mean, the rate of suicide and anxiety in this generation, because the reality distortion is so fucking high, that you got to give me time to help you kind of recalibrate your relationship to reality and realize, Danielle, not only are you good enough, you're fucking a miracle. That you're here. Look, the very fact that you're here to talk to me says you're strong. That's it. Don't get deep about it. The very fact that you're here to ask that question on a device, I don't know what device it is. It could be a hanger and a bicycle pedaling, and somebody's just telling you what I'm saying on the TV they got from back. I don't know where you're coming from. But the very fact that you're here talking to me is a statement of your strength. Now, you can play it down and smother it, or you can walk in it and let's start building it together.
Yeah, real quick, is that over time, I think by the course of this class, this is a zero medium. This is zero. And this is your self-value, and this is your hero worship. So you're here because you don't feel like you're good enough. And you're looking up all the way up here because your hero worship is so high, not realizing that the course of the class is helping you bring your self-value up and lower that hero worship to where you look at everybody like, okay, like I know I deserve to be in this space. And you just another human being with the same kind of flaws that I do. But here's a little bit of the superpower. I had to work hella harder, especially if you're in a space of people, around people with privilege. And I had to work hella hard to get here. I got hella muscles. And so that's the goal, and that's going to take time. It's not a one-stop shop like a motherfucking motivational 2-week class type of deal. You know what I'm saying?
And also, too, like you'd be surprised. Can I say something? We said something about wealth. Remember we said wealth earlier. Side note, real quick. You can't achieve wealth if you secretly demonize wealth. Mm-hmm. In our culture, not feeling good enough, and we also secretly demonize wealth. And if you secretly demonize wealth, you'll never achieve wealth, right? And so we also taking on that challenge in this class is that some people unconsciously, they say, man, I don't care about that money. It ain't always about the money. Shut up. Because at the end of the day, I tell you all the time, money gives you the ability to operate in your community, and I'm sure all of us see things we'd like to change tomorrow. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to provide all of our youth with summer jobs, and we can fund that? Would it be nice if we can reduce, look, who's gangbanging when you can eat, you got a good-ass job, and you sleeping well, and you have a house? Ain't nobody trying to kill nobody, right? And so the reality is that there's a lot of things that we care about that resources is going to be a part of that solution, right? It's going to be more than resources, but a part of that solution. And so this class is designed to really dive into that. And so we're going to get there. And I promise you, if we had time, if we weren't close to 9 o'clock, if we weren't at 9 o'clock, I can have almost the few people that's in here because of COVID. We're down to almost nobody. But y'all all somebody. Y'all important. I don't want to call y'all nobody, but almost nobody's here compared to what's usually here. Everybody who's been in this class for more than a year can tell you how their self-value went up. Everybody, even including you, Shabisha.
Please.
Yeah.
We don't have time for me to go into that.
Right, that's part of this class, yeah.
Autumn said,
Oh, that's
question.
my folks, Autumn. I know Autumn, that's my folks.
Work smarter, not harder. I realize this, but I struggle with feeling valueless when I'm not moving around all the time. This is one of my biggest insecurities.
Sometimes when you're moving, you don't know what to do, then you just keep moving more. If you don't know how to work strategical, then you're gonna work harder. That's actually not. If you don't know how to make one move 3 moves, and 3 moves 10 moves, right? If you don't understand exponential growth, if you don't understand how to get people to buy into your idea, to drive your idea for you, if you don't understand how to get people to fund your idea, you don't understand how to scale your idea, if you don't know how to build, guess what you're gonna do? You'll work harder. Also, our parents, we came out of the industrial age. And we came out of, this is macro now. Slavery, 160 years ago. When slavery was over, black folks just said, I'm going back to work as a slave. 60s roll around, we say, hey, we want some freedoms, but we still moving like slaves. I would argue today we ain't really changed that rhythm. So in the end, we were always taught work hard because it's valuable. And our parents praised us for that because they worked hard and that's how they saw their value. If you want to break the chains of cultural slavery, and cultural slavery is not only black folks, it's white folks, it's Asian, it's Indian folks, it's a full gamut of the human race. Many of us come from slave-based culture because at one point, most of the world was slaves. Let's be real, right? That's how the world ran, right? And so a lot of times our parents are like, oh, he has a job, I'm so proud of him, he works so hard, he's got this supervisor position. What the parent is like, I'm so proud of his status. His parents said to you, it's fucked up. But they're not, and then when you say, daddy or mom, I'm about to go for wealth, ooh, I don't know about that, baby. Because they never understood the value of wealth because they got rewarded for serving others and achieving. That's what the industrial age was all about, right? So when you decide you want to change, the reason you need this class, we first start working on you, but we're also on a sideline introducing new ways of thinking so you can move into that. Other thing is that there's 2 ways you're going to learn this class. This class is going to help you reposition all your guns, calibrate your system, show you how to aim, how to shoot, and how to fire. But the other part of it is getting in the game, the things you think you want to do, and going in internship, which is your form of practice. Otherwise, if you're not practicing and you're not getting the internship, if you're not learning, guess what you're going to do? You go back to what you was doing before. I'm going to work harder. If I want more, I'll put in more hours. That's a horrible equation because that in itself means look, you know why so many people want to quit their business 10 years later? Because they never scale it. If you don't scale it, you get burned out. You're tired of doing the same damn job for 10 damn years. I'm tired of answering this damn phone. I'm tired of going out and meeting these customers. I'm tired because you never learn to scale it. Your goal is to make yourself obsolete in a business. Where the business doesn't need to see you, you sleep and the business makes you money and you go on to your next venture. Like you're always doing something, but you're not anchored in that one venture. The reason so many of us burn out is because we just we get comfortable and we just try to maintain that economic status or we try to maintain our status and our economic state, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves, oh, you know what, I don't even like my business anymore. It's not the business, you just didn't scale. You good?
Last one.
Okay.
Kaja. Also
Dope name, Kaja?
Kaja.
Dope name.
She says, I know this isn't what they're saying necessarily, but how I'm receiving the message tonight is that you have to uproot your entire life to make this happen. I worked really hard for a lot of years to course correct
I love this one.
prior decisions and to get to a place in my career and financially to make my life look and feel the way I want. So the conflict is, if it looks the way you want, why do you want more? Hence the conflict. The corporate comfort cage has deep roots.
Well, first of all, fire. Yo, is a sister or brother? Because I don't want to assume no names. Sister? Okay. Sister, that was fire. Okay. Let me go into a couple of things. There's one distortion. There's one fallacy in there. Her life is never the same. It's always changing. It's never the same. Only the human brain can see the same body of see a river, a body of water, and call it the same name. A river is always changing. Our life is always. You think your life's the same, but I promise you, if I was able to record what you did 5 years ago and what you're doing today, even if you worked really, really hard to get there, it will never stay the same. That company's not guaranteed to even stay that place. Like no company stays in the same position forever. No title stays forever. Nothing stays the same, right? I think the only thing I would change in her approach, first of all, because I want to separate 2 things. Her conclusion was fire. The only thing stays the same is our perception of reality. Reality is not designed to stay the same. If we don't condition ourselves for change, we find ourselves almost trampled by life. If we condition ourselves for change, we become major surfers and we ride the waves, right? Life is exciting. That's another thing too we forgot to mention. You know the thing that kills our people a lot? Fairness. We hate for shit to be unfair. It eats us at the gut. But fairness is another kind of distortion. To the sheep, the lion treated him Fairness is based upon your perception. As entrepreneurs, we face unfairness all the time. We don't have those distortions. So once we learn to accept fairness is not part of the game, our stress level came way down and life became better. We were seeing the roses in life as opposed to seeing the weeds in life. But when we were focused on fairness as not being fair and things not being right, then all we saw was the weeds. And we couldn't see the roses because the roses was behind the weeds. So all I'm saying to her is that part one is that if she can let go of this idea that she's arrived, there's no such thing. And if she gets honest and processes what I'm saying, she'll realize, shit, there is no rival. Now, that part two, what she said, which is, that is the nature. Look, the reason you hire employees is to protect your assets. The risk level, it's risk management. It's risk management. Hiring employees is risk management. If you hire contractors, you understand and you're hiring people and people are coming through and somebody can, for example, let's say he's a contractor, but he hasn't brought into my company. And I send him on a job to go buy a product for me. And he gets there and he realizes, I can buy this shit myself. Risk done, right? But his loyalty comes to me when I can build a relationship with him, says to me that I won't see the benefit to me. I'm just going to just make sure I protect Nana. Right? That's one of the risks. That's why we hire employees to reduce risk in businesses. But it comes with a cost, which we're going to get into this year. It's what's called the dog versus the wolf. We'll get into our next class. But she's right. That shit becomes like, it clamps you and locks you in. And that comfort, you don't realize, okay, although sitting in your bed watching and binging on your favorite TV shows is so comfortable, your body becomes weaker. Comfort is a destroyer of human beings. We're designed to embrace discomfort to become greater. Reading is uncomfortable. Exercise is uncomfortable. Fucking marriage, children are uncomfortable. All the things that's progressive in our life is uncomfortable, right? And yet, the whole corporate America preaches comfort. What you do this weekend, girl? I was relaxing. I was chilling. Oh my God, no, you wasn't, right? And so all that discomfort, all that comfort that we're speaking into is destroying us. And the cold part is when you're young, you may not catch it. When you get older, or when you watch something like George Floyd or some things you see in society that you want to change, and you realize you don't have the power to change it. That's a cold, and don't get me wrong, it's not our fault. And I love her. The way she stated that was so amazing because she showed her vulnerability while asking a question. And honestly, that model in itself, I just want to almost praise her and just stop and say, yo, if more people can ask questions like that was an entrepreneur's type of question right there. Because your power comes from being humble, not from flexing. Oh, I got to stop right here because I'm just blown away. That's a dope ass question. Dope as shit. Man, speak on that shit right there. Hey, beautiful question.
Success make you happy. I'm gonna start it by saying this, and it was touched on a little earlier. If a lot of times we're grown up through our religious background and being in the hood, and us valuing social currency or status, and not necessarily being able to gain wealth, we've grown up in an environment that demonized money. Money don't grow on trees. Money ain't everything. All these different little quotes that we've been fed that has entered into our brain as children that has become our inner voice, our self-talk. So as an adult, a lot of times, naturally, when we think about money, we have conflicting beliefs. On one side, we want it, but on the other side, we got a list of shit that we was told as kids. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is, if you demonize money, it's not going to work. If you demonize wealth, it's not going to work for you. It's not going to work.
Not at all.
So if you ask me as an entrepreneur, if I have to choose between having money and not having it, I'm going to choose having it every single solitary fucking time. Every single time. Money's good. But we have a distorted view because if you like me grew up in poverty, you grew up, that was the emotional, my mom's poor, my mom need help. We in the hood, we ain't got shit. So we playing hood poor people's games. That's my car. That's my house. Where shit you could never in your mind imagine as a kid, you would just, as things drive by, you point to it. And that's mine, that's mine. So you over dramatize and over fantasize on the one hand, money and success and wealth. And when I get old and you over dramatize it. And then on the very other hand, you demonize it, which creates these conflicting beliefs. But the question is can money make you happy? The answer is hell no, money can't make you happy.
Not at all.
What money can do is that it can add to wherever you are right now. So, you can make you happy. Like when I hit my first level of big money, in my mind, I had all these happiness things that I could check off. I just knew money would make me happy. So when it hit, man, for like 3 weeks, maybe a month, I was going hard. Car, showing up to the dealership, give me 2 of those. Give me that. Let me go to the jeweler, get my chains and then the clothes, going to New York, buying all the flyest shit. And it's fun. It's fun. But over time, the fun, just like anything, if you spent 3 weeks at Disneyland, you would be miserable.
That's so true.
Going to the strip club might be fun for a couple hours, but imagine
it might take me a couple years.
It might take you a couple years.
Take me a couple years. I think.
But imagine being there all for months. Man, you
I gotta
bored.
Test that. Sorry. Hey, Atlanta, y'all, I see y'all. Anyway, go ahead.
Real talk. So the question, enjoying, money is a multiplier. Success is a multiplier. So it multiplies wherever you are. So guess what? It's on the flip side too. If you miserable, if you unhappy, if you unbalanced, if you flooded with cognitive distortions, if you paranoid, if you all those other emotions, it's going to magnify them. So you have to find your happiness. I had to go broke. And once I went completely broke and I didn't have shit, because in my mind, my success, my identity was tied to money. My identity was tied to it. So when I lost it all, I hid in a corner. I hid in the house. I don't want nobody to see me. I ain't got shit. But once I found my happiness, I'm like, damn, I'm hella happy. My self-value raised. I'm hella happy. I get it now. Now, when money comes in, it just adds to my joy. It adds to who I am currently. But I don't want anybody in this who are taking this class thinking that, man, I want to get rich so I can be happy. That's some bullshit. And who says that? Jim Carrey says, I wish everybody who has these big dreams that wish for things and wish for major success, I wish that they get it so that they can realize none of it don't bring happiness, because it absolutely doesn't. Now, for sure, it can solve problems. It can add value. If your family needs it and they need to get to a certain level, you can help your family out. You can provide jobs, but separate the two, because that's what we're going to do all year, is make sure that those two are separate, because there's nothing worse than being rich and miserable. I don't even feel like either one of us will feel like we did our job or we're doing you a disservice if all this shit was just about being rich. Understanding the emotional part and the fabric of who you are underneath is important.
Matter of fact, let me help you kind of so when you first get money, like he said, you start buying stuff. Then you ain't got no place to put all that shit. I'm not lying to you. But here's the second part. What made you want to buy that stuff, the stuff that made you rich, makes you lose value on that, what made you want to buy that stuff. A lot of times when you want to buy a car and a house, a fancy car, for example, a Toyota Camry, for some people, is not too much of a difference from a Mercedes Benz, right? It's not too much of a difference. Like if you just get to forget about the way you think about the brand, but like when you're driving a car, forget about the status. If you just had to drive the car in a land where nobody knew which one of the cars were, the nice Toyota Camry and a Mercedes-Benz, although the price is hugely different, it's not a huge different experience. A Land Rover, Range Rover, is not too much different than, say, a Sorrento, right, which is like $70,000 cheaper or $80,000 cheaper. But reason you're driving those cars is because, like the sister said, you're trying to prove. I think it was I forgot the sister's name. She's talking about what do you do when you don't feel like you're good enough. Neil said, when you don't feel like you're good enough, how you spend your money. So a lot of times when you're trying to build a business and you're not happy, you're leaking resources because you don't feel like you're good enough. So you're buying a whole bunch of shit you should not be buying because you got to keep your costs low when you grow your business. Okay, in order to be successful, your input has to be way greater than your output, right? So you could work a job for a minute, really separate the input and output, take that investment, and then throw it into the market or throw it into a business, and then that starts to generate your money, right? But you can't keep your input and output relatively equal. So, but when you don't feel like you're good enough, every time you make money, you're going to spend money on status because you got to prove to people that you're good enough. So you're not feeling good enough. You making yourself feel good enough becomes a big ass expense. The clothes you wear, I only wear these kind of shoes. I only eat this kind of food. I only go to this kind of restaurant. I have this kind of house. I live in this kind of neighborhood. I go to these kind of events. I only ride first class. I only go to these kind of places. That's now a huge ass expense that's based upon you not feeling like you're good enough. So now you finally start to grow in this path of wealth, and all of a sudden, that stuff don't value you anymore. Like if I go into a car dealership, they can't come and be like, yo, this is a new Benz. What do you think? I'd be like, I'd be old next year. That's how my brain thinks. My brain doesn't fall in love like it used to. My brain used to be like, ooh, if I just had this car, my life's going to change. And I realized, it didn't change. Right? And as you grow, you realize you don't want to wear all these clothes anymore. You're not going to wear all them damn suits. You're not going to wear all this. Like you start buying less because you realize this shit don't make no, I'm trying to buy popularity when I am popularity. When you perform at a high level and the community finds out who you are, your popularity is through the fucking roof. You can't go somewhere without somebody almost calling you by your last name or your first, like addressing you with respect. Because if you start performing at a certain level, it earns respect and relationships. Now the clothes seem superficial. Now the spending money seems superficial. And now you realize the money can't buy me nothing more. So now you're just left with yourself. And guess what your next form of happiness is? You start giving. Because you can't buy yourself nothing else. And guess what? You find out that at the beginning of the game, giving was a secret from the get-go. If you show it from others, you get greater happiness from giving than you do from receiving. Number 2, you find out that your best time you ever have is when you're chilling with your close friends, eating good food. Most of you guys could do that shit right the fuck now. Once you realize what really makes you happy, you can hack happiness and go achieve it right now. Some of y'all are not raising your kids because you're outside looking for happiness, not realizing that the person that you're raising is your greatest joy. Some of you guys are looking for something new, can't wait to get the new car, and not realizing you're just ignoring that car that gets you back and forth, and ain't nothing wrong with it. And you don't realize how much money you have in the bank, which allows you to be happy. And so what we're trying to say to you is that you set these far-off goals, it's going to become infectious. And next thing you know, like, if I just get this watch, if I can just get this new kind of woman, if I get this new kind of man, if I get this new kind of friendship, I get this new type of acceptance, and guess what? You're never going to be happy. And then you get old one day and realize you have nothing because you kept betraying people for the next thing and the next thing, and you dumped it, you canceled it, you fired off, and you isolate yourself, and you die by yourself. And you realize at the end of the day, you're only here to live and die for a short period. Is that the story you want to tell? Is I just ran this whole time on earth just going to get shit and then died and contribute nothing, left nothing behind? And you know, the last point is that kids usually don't carry on your wealth. So stop telling that damn lie, I'm building all this money for my future family. It's proven that money really goes past 3 generations for all human beings. Kids often don't share your convictions, your desire, and your drive, your intuitiveness, your intelligence, your wisdom. They often don't share all that. So the whole idea, I'm going to pass it down to my kids, is a distortion you created, is a narrative fallacy you put in your own mind. At the end of the day, the reason we say it comes down to freedom and impact, wealth, is because when you really define what is this all about, money allows you to be a modern day king or queen, which means that you get a chance to change the shape of the land you exist on. It's not about you rising up in status. If you do that, you're going down a rabbit hole. So with that being said, we're out of time. As they say in Russia, y'all have a good night now. Take care.